Now move on to item 4 on the agenda, to postpone. I guess, do we need to formally approve the agenda?
Yes, sir.
Can I get a motion on that?
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Second?
Motion and second, all in favor of that? Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes 5-0. We'll now move on to our first of 2 public comment periods. We invite members of the public to share their thoughts and matters of issues that are germane to county business. If you're here to speak on an item that's on tonight's agenda that is having a public hearing, you must wait and share your thoughts during the public hearing on each specific item. This is not a forum for political campaigning, promoting a business. Please keep your comments focused on the issues and subject matter over which this board has responsibility. Please keep your comments to 3 minutes if you're speaking as an individual, and 5 minutes if you're representing a group. So that staff can get your name and address correct in the minutes, could you please sign in? Excuse me. Yeah. Could you please sign in with your name and address? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Board of Supervisors, I'm Floyd Green, 2047 Hancock Road. Tonight, I just wanted to give you my opinions on your agenda later about the courthouse expansion project. I really have no opinion on whether or not the courts need additional space or whether the Sheriff's Office needs additional space for the Sally Port. But what I am here to support is the critical need for additional space for communications. As most of you know, I've been involved, or was involved in communications in this county since the opening of the first communications center in January 1 of 1973. Coordinated the 3 different moves that last into our current building where they are. When they moved in term for the
Aye. Mr. Nordvig?
Aye.
Mrs. Cable?
Aye.
Mr. Melton?
Aye.
And Mr. Tucker?
Aye.
It is unanimous.
Thank you. We'll now move on to item 8A, appointments to board commissions. We found on page 31 of your packet.
Application in there, she's well qualified. We're excited to have her.
I support that. Also, she served very well on the Citizens Advisory Broadband Group, and I'm really looking forward to her participation in the EDA. I second that motion. Any questions?
I have a question. It's not about the candidate, though. We had a pretty good crop of resumes turned in the first round when we created or rather brought back the EDA about a year and a half ago. We have another opening on there. I noticed Phil Sherman will be going on.
Yes.
And have we vigorously advertised this so that we get the number and quality that we had the first time around? Is there anything more we need to do? So it's not really about this appointment, it's about the opening that we have?
I can't answer that question. Mr. Norvig, I think we have it on our website that is an opening a month before we have another meeting. So hopefully if there's anybody who's interested, they can go ahead on our website, get the applications and fill them out, and we can fill that position in next month's meeting.
All right, thank you.
And with him, he is in my district, which we don't force ourselves to do this by district, but I felt like I did appoint him years ago. Served as the chairman as we revitalized the EDA, did a great job. He feels that, it's taking a little more time than he has available to himself right now, so he's asked that his.
Done a superb job. I recommend that we reappoint her, Gayla Matthews.
I definitely sat with her many years, and she does a wonderful job, so I will second that nomination. Any questions or comments on the nomination? All in favor on the motion as presented? Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes 5-0. We have an appointment, kind of an appointment for the Richmond Regional Planning District Commission, found on page 43 of your packet. I think Ms. Cabell's going to take this one.
Yes, we're asking you to appoint Jen Giovanetti to replace Karen Carmack. Jen is taking over the chairmanship of the Planning Commission here in the county, and by virtue of that position, she will attend the RRPDC meetings. Jen has been serving on the Planning Commission. I appointed her when I was elected, and to take the place of Richard Ayers. Jen does live in District 3. She has a master's degree in community and regional planning, several professional certifications, and she's currently employed by the Federal Reserve of Richmond.
I think many of us know Jen and have some FaceTime with her. I think she'd be a wonderful appointment to PDC, representing the Planning Commission member. I do know that Karen served for many years and has done a wonderful job, and I think it's good to change it around a little bit. So I'm looking forward to Jen. I will second the motion of Jen replacing Ms. Carmack. She'll replacing her for Karen, the remainder of Karen's term. Karen was just reappointed on February 22nd, 2016.
Okay.
Any questions or comments? All in favor of the motion as presented?
Aye.
Those opposed?
Mr. Chairman, before you move on to the next item, on page 47 for Ms. Giovanetti's application, it's listed as Richmond Metropolitan Planning Organization. We'll strike that out and replace it with RRPDC.
Absolutely. Thank you for the catch, Mr. Yep, you're exactly all right. It is. Thank you. Staff will make that correction. Very well. We'll now move on to item 8D, appointment to the Analytic Council. We have a person, Gay Bartlett, whose term is going up, and Gay has asked to serve again, and I definitely know Gay's passion for anti-littering council, and she has been very vocal over the years, and I definitely would like to reappoint Ms. Bartlett to the Analytic Council.
Second, Mr. Chairman.
A motion, any questions on the motion?
Can I tell a funny Gay story?
Absolutely.
Gay spends so much time picking up litter that one of her neighbors asked her if she had to do community service.
No, we need more of her. She definitely does a great job. So all in favor of Gay Bartlett on the Analytic Council?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Do we want to move on to appointments? Or we want to do something else? Okay with appointments at 6:30? It's a little early.
It's a lot early.
The school resource? Sure. Do we want to do that, are they present? Don't want to short anybody, we could probably try. We have time certain certificates of appreciation and proclamations at 6:30, so it's only about 6:15, so.
We have the,
Well, we could do some old business. Let's do that. We'll do some old business and then move. We'll do item 9A, Strategic Action Plan Report, found on page 55 of your packet.
and board members, that is in your packet. I guess last month, we, rather than listing every item, we tried the approach of letting you ask any questions you might have. There are a few updates on a few of the items, and I'm certainly here to respond. We made some progress in a number of areas, and then some are kind of on their own schedule. So I'm happy to answer questions, and we have staff here.
So just a comment. So, the Planning Commission had been working on the updating of the comprehensive plan. It looks like from the suggested calendar here that we're going to try to not have any public hearings at all until September, till the end of the summer. That's in request that more people would be able to participate.
That's correct. There was I would say, a concerted effort based on what I saw of the Planning Commission to be responsive to the board's interest in getting this done quickly. But best laid plans sometimes don't always come to fruition with the complexity of the matters. They got to a point where they felt like then involving the public would put them in a July and August timeframe when you typically don't get very good opportunities for the public with vacations and school being out, and they wanted to be respectful of the public and mindful of those issues. And so they've proposed a little bit different calendar that pushes it back into the fall.
Any questions or comments? So I see that they're going to try to hold their public, receive from PC their recommended comp plan on 9/17, and present the PC recommendations to the Board of Supervisors on 9/17. So I guess they're going to try to do their stuff beginning of the month and bring us to the end of the month.
That's my understanding.
Okay. And then we would try to have something in front of and adopt it in October. Okay. All right. I'm okay. Any other questions on the strategic action plan?
So I understand, nonetheless, you will be bringing us anything out of the ordinary in one one way or the other against the strategic plan that we need to hear about between now and then, whenever we need to hear about it.
If there's anything emergent, I'll be in touch with the board, but things are generally moving along as per the reports in the plan. The most significant adjustment is the schedule on the comprehensive plan. That's the most significant change on there, I would say.
Mr. Tucker, I think that staff will still be updating the strategic action plan. The only things that will be kind of not in limbo, I'm sure, as Mr. Brett will tell us, is the comprehensive plan work they're doing. The rest of the strategic action plan will still be working, and we'll get a monthly update on that. What we're basically going to not see really will be anything from the PC on the comp plan at all until September or October. So, but the rest of the stuff work on the comp plan, I mean, on strategic action plan will still be
Yes.
held to the document. Okay.
I think we shifted one other date in there
Yeah,
slightly on the
Route 60 study.
Yeah.
Okay. Other questions? We'll now move on to item 9B, report on bond projects found on page 67.
And similar to last month, Mr. Chairman, we're here to answer questions. Projects are going along as I think everyone's expected. We've got the water tank contract's been executed, and most of the other projects are on schedule as per the document.
Any questions? The completion dates, I like the estimated completion dates on each of the reports. So, the tower's going to be done on June 30th of 2017. That's what it
I think
says.
we have the wrong date, the wrong year in there.
That's what it says.
We'll amend
I'm
the
chuckling
year.
now. Okay. Well, we must going to drop it in on a helicopter. So, be nice.
Prefabricated.
Anyway, all right.
Thank you for emphasizing to the staff that board members pay attention to the documents that we present.
I circled it in red, but I didn't want to throw it up on the screen. Used to see a lot of that when I was in school. So, we'll now move on to 9C, quarterly financial report as of March 31st, 2017. I think Charlotte's going to take this, and you gave us a new copy? Okay.
As on page 83 of your packet is the next quarterly report to be presented as of March the 31st. This is kind of something new we're trying to do. We started back in February doing December 31st, and so this is March 31st quarterly report. It's kind of a high level summarized, but as of March 31st, on the document, it shows that 25% is remaining in the fiscal year. That is true definitely for the expenditure side. On the revenues, some of our revenues may look a little, percentages may look a little skewed, like your real estate taxes, because as we all know, as of March 31st, we've only collected half the year. So don't want anybody to be alarmed by the percentages on there. We are still very much in line with where we need to be, and especially on taxes. I've been checking that almost on a daily basis since June 5th, and everything's coming in just as expected, and Faye, as her office, does a great job at doing the collections. Farther down as well, you have local sales taxes showing at 43%, but as you know, the state is 2 months behind at remitting the local sales tax to us, so those percentages can be a little skewed as far as the 25% remaining. But we're trying to give you kind of a benchmark of where we should be. There are some notes in the expenditures on some of the areas that we may be under the 25%, like our debt service. We pay that twice a year for the most part. There's actually, it's more like 4 times a year. So it looks like we have no money left. Well, it's because we pretty much paid all our debt service as of March 31st. There's a few more payments coming out. That's kind of a quick overview, but I'm here to answer any questions you might have as of March 31st.
So, from the revenue perspective, the
Yes.
main thing is not to panic, since we're not to panic because we're
Correct.
only at 42% total general fund
Right,
correct?
and the majority of that is because you've only collected half of your taxes.
Just want to make sure if anyone in the public was looking at it, they all of a sudden they say, oh my gosh, we're at 75%, we're at 42%, we're way underfunded. We have a disaster on our hands.
Correct.
It's the way the collections are done.
Correct.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, or David, were you about to say something? No, okay. And I guess this, Ted and Charlotte, this is for either one of you or both. Would it be better for the public to have an additional column that has a benchmark for this period of time? In other words, instead of having all these negative percentages, 47 and 45% and whatever, because the first time I looked at the page, I thought, what is going on here? That was my first reaction. And, you know, it quickly resolves itself when you've stared at these things for a while.
Right.
But I'm imagining somebody in the public looking at this and saying, what is going on in Powhatan County? Is there a way we can do the, 25% remaining column or whatever, so that they can see, here's our benchmark, here's where we are, a little more apples to apples, or is
So-
this too hard?
I don't think so. I think what you're asking is to have a column in there that has 25%, maybe show where we're over and under of the 25%.
Right.
Or, and then, and like I said, we try to put the comments in there just because there are some areas that it's not a perfect science at March 31st,
Yeah.
how much is left. And so we try to put some explanations, hoping to make it a little clearer to those who aren't staring on a daily basis like I do.
Sort
But-
of like, benchmark for such and such a date, March 31st, and have a column, that's your benchmark, that's your goal, whatever.
So
I
some
don't
of
want to
our
make it too
revenues may
complicated.
have a different benchmark, and so that's what you're trying, I think I can come up with, I can try to make it more clear for the next
This is
quarter.
something that a lot of jurisdictions sort of wrestle with. What is the best way to, display that kind of information so that it doesn't have to be just people in the know who kind of get it? So I know some of our peers have kicked around different ways of presenting this, so we'll take a look at some of the options and try to find something that doesn't require as much
Certainly.
background information.
I don't want to make this something that takes up too much of your time, but if it's not that hard to do on a spreadsheet, then it might be worth it. Thank you.
Well, first of all, thank you. This is a quarterly, report we're being getting, and it's been beneficial because it helps us know where we are.
Yeah.
I agree. Spoke to you earlier today, just want to make sure I was tracking correctly.
Right.
And luckily I was. And, but, something on a simplified for the public to make sure, because we want to be transparent, let people know that we're doing a
Right.
good job of managing their dollars and projecting correctly and all those things. So,
We'll certainly look at some other options and see what we can
thank you.
come up with.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
Charlotte, does
Sir.
this go to, or a form of it go to each department? For their
Not this
budget?
particular, this is actually more summarized. They get a more detailed line by line every month to review. And I tell them every month where they should be in their budget as each month goes along. So they get it pretty much within a week of the end of the month.
That was gonna be my second question.
So if someone's overspent, they know they're overspent.
Correct.
Thank you.
Right.
We're good.
Thank you, Dave. Charlotte, thank you. And we'll now we'll try one more. We'll do Resolution 2017-30. You think we can do that in about 4 minutes? Maybe we will.
Sure.
Could take a little while longer.
That could take a little bit longer,
could take a
depending on the level of questioning the
Yeah,
board
let's-
has.
Let's move on. We'll move on to 11A, presentation and proclamation on school readiness program, smart beginnings. I think there's going to be a presentation.
Yes.
And then Mr. Norvig will read the proclamation. Who's doing the presentation?
We have a guest.
Good evening, my name is Jackie Stewart. I'm with Richmond Regional Planning District Commission, and actually, I'm waiting for my teammates from Smart Beginnings Greater Richmond.
Okay, well, we'll wait a minute then. You have a seat, we'll jump on.
They do much better than I do with this.
That's okay. We'll wait,
All right, thank you.
we'll wait. How about, who's handling 11B, presentation EMD accreditations for certificates by EMS Communication Coordinator? Is that Tom or? Okay. All right, we'll move on to that.
Good evening. My name is Ken Crumpler. I'm the Communications Coordinator for the Virginia Office of Emergency Medical Services. Also joining me from the Office of EMS is Mr. Sam Burnett. And out here tonight to talk about the importance of emergency medical dispatch. So before I stepped up to the podium here, had you ever heard of emergency medical dispatch? If you hadn't, that's okay.
We have, probably not the detail we need, but we have.
Okay. The Office of EMS believes that the EMS system is initiated with that first 911 call to the dispatcher. That's when the patient care really begins. So it's very important that the dispatcher get the information correctly. And that's why there's emergency medical dispatch protocols are in place. It's a systemized, organized series of questions and answers and instructions that the 911 dispatcher provides to the citizen, whether they're in need themselves or calling for someone else. Again, the office sees that need and sees it to be very important. So we set aside and established an accreditation program to set those guidelines for best practices. So with that, we determined that providing the patient care was paramount, to be able to tell that caller exactly what to do in any given situation, whether something as minor as a stub toe all the way up to CPR or childbirth, everything in between, to be able to inform and educate the public on how to do that until EMS resources arrived on scene. It's also very important for resource management. I heard the comment a little bit earlier how fast Powhatan County is growing. And I remember as a kid, I used to come out here to hunt, which was popular place to come out here. And it has grown leaps and bounds. Your population is growing. With that, your call load, calls for service to your 911 center also increases. With that, your resources really don't. You're still trying to do more with what you've had before. So employing proper EMD resource management is able to use your resources in the smartest way possible. A quick analogy on that, say you go out here at the soccer field and little Susie or little Johnny falls down, twists their ankle. They certainly need EMS response. Do they need an ALS ambulance with a engine company first response and everything else that would come along with it? Certainly not. It's excellent for resource management. Also, it's excellent to employ because not all calls are emergent calls. So again, you're saving your maintenance and your wear and tear on not only your equipment, but your personnel. So that's where the Office of EMS views it, that you're providing patient care, you're using smart resource management, and you're getting the right resource to the right place at the right time. Hence, we set up our accreditation program, and this was just not me sitting up there at my office coming up, well, this should be good. No, we worked through the communications committee of the State EMS Advisory Board and brought in subject matter experts from all sides to determine what was best practices. We put it out there. We can't force a 911 center to do anything. That's why this accreditation process is completely voluntary. Now, we do offer incentives and aid for doing that, and out here in Powhatan, they did a very good job of saving all of your taxpayers a whole lot of money by securing grant funding to pay for the bulk of the program here. So they went out, they determined the vendor that they wanted to use, made that determination, got grant money to help cover for the cost, then was able to train all their dispatchers and then come up, make that determination of what is the accreditation standards and have met or exceeded every standard that we had set so far. So at this point, and my numbers, because it's a moving target, but right now, we're right at 56% of 911 centers in the Commonwealth of Virginia providing this much-needed service. We won't be happy until it's 100%, but we're on the way, because when we first started out with this program, it was about 39%. So when working with Tom and with Cindy, who, by the way, Cindy did most of the work. I'm only picking on Tom, but no, she was my go-to person and my point of contact, and an absolute delight to work with. So, making these headways with this program, especially as you continue to grow, yet still being a rural county, having those long response times for your resources, that somebody is on the line providing that care to the caller in need. So, So at this point, I'm to give this, Mr. Voorhees, I do believe.
Chief Singer, Sheriff Nunley, would you come up? Cindy? These are key people really that worked on this much. Cindy, of course, you mentioned.
Absolutely. And on a side note, this means a lot to me, not only from a professional point of view, but I'm still a volunteer firefighter EMT in Hanover County, where I live, and I see the value of this on a regular basis. So, on behalf of the Virginia Department of Health Office of Emergency Medical Services, it is my pleasure to present to the Powhatan County Public Safety Communications to be recognized as an accredited emergency medical dispatch communication center. So congratulations to you, and I do believe there's a bunch of dispatchers right back over there. They're the ones who should get your applause. They're the ones who are doing it every day. Not a problem. Are there any questions, or are we taking pictures?
Taking pictures.
We're taking pictures right now.
Thank you.
Tom or Cindy, would y'all like to say anything?
I'll say something, sir. First off, the people that we had asked to come up here are very important in making this happen. Chief Singer, Sheriff Nunley. Sheriff Nunley put the person in place and made this really, the key person, which is Cindy Gillespie back in 2016. And we have a little appreciation, the certificate about that. But the people, the team overall did it so quickly, and they are here today. The team that she built, the team that the sheriff built, the Chief Singer worked with, they worked on that really diligently and at amazing speed and accuracy. I was really, really pleased to be part of that, and on the end of the scale, if you will. But it was, when I first came in, it was amazing speed and how fast they did it and how well they did it. So I'm very honored to be part of that, just to be here in such a great organization from the get-go.
Thank you. Any comments from the board? Couple comments from me. So, Tom, it's nice to come in and reap the rewards of,
It sure
you know,
is.
of other people's
It
work.
sure is.
And I'm just picking on you a little bit, and Cindy, thank you. But to the people sitting behind you, we thank you. Our citizens thank you. To know that if I was to break my leg, at least you could coach my wife to calm her down enough to at least give me decent medical care until somebody could get there, brings me peace. But thank you for what y'all do day in and day out, and to achieve this award for our county and our citizens is so important to all of us. I thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate that. We'll hang with probably.
That was a good picture.
Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you, sir.
Well, since we'll go back to 11A in just a second. I think it's timely to go and do 11C at this time. Yes, that's what I'm saying. 11C, we'll do 11C at this time. I think Tom's going to take care of that.
Well, Cindy, would you come back up, please? This is a certificate of excellence. And I would ask, you know what, all the communication officers, if you would, please come around with Cindy, because I think she'll feel better that way. She's prepared a speech, but she doesn't want to make it right now.
Okay.
Okay?
That would be, we're rolling along.
She'll email it to you later. The group of people, communication officers here, played an important role. We already heard me talk about the team effort. The team effort was headed by the team leader here, Ms. Cindy Gillespie. Essentially, in 60 days, she became a first aid instructor. She's an AFCO certified instructor as well. And she took her time and effort to make sure that everybody embraced this change. It's a significant change. Anytime you move from an organized, detailed response, it's going to cause people a little angst. She walked that through. She made sure everybody understood, worked diligently, hour after hour, making sure that everybody understood what was expected, how to do this. And this change was only for the better, and it has made it better. Our response times are better. Our processing times are better. Our processing times are better. So because of that, I asked Mr. Voorhees to be a little appreciation, because what she done is she won an award. We put her in for an award for the ODEMSA, and it's an Old Dominion Emergency Medical Service Dispatch Association. And what happens now, she's eligible this November for the state award. And I hope she does win that. But it's the first time that anybody has won this award for our district in Powhatan. And as a result of that, as ODEMSA winner, I wanted also to give her the certificate of excellent appreciation for her hard work, and that's what it basically says here. So just because of that, thank you. Appreciate that. You want to make a speech now?
I'm emailing it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, folks, for being here.
Did you get it, Adam?
Would anybody like to say anything from the dispatch office? Y'all more than welcome. Nope?
No?
Okay. They just want to dispatch. That's talk on the radio, that's right. We'll now move on to 11A, presentation and proclamation on school readiness program, Smart Beginnings, on page 115, and we have a presentation.
Thank you.
Take one and pass it down, okay? Take one of these and pass it down. Pass it down. I think you get one of these each. And take one and pass it down.
Thank you.
Welcome,
Great. Thank you.
when you're ready.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, Board, Administrator Voorhees. We thank you for this opportunity. We apologize for our tardiness. Didn't allow ourselves enough time leaving downtown Richmond to get out to Powhatan. But we do appreciate this opportunity and to present our regional plan for school readiness, to which many of your school folks have been a part of this along with the Smart Beginnings organization. Here with me is Rich Schultz, who is our executive director, and Jackie Stewart, who is a part of the Richmond area PDC. So we just want to give you a brief overview of the regional plan and how we got to this. Rich has handed out the actual plan, hot off the press, literally, just over the last 2 months. We've been out and presenting to the various localities that make up our region, and we are just honored to have the privilege to come out and speak to you guys today. So who we are a public-private partnership, Smart Beginnings. We have localities, as I mentioned, you guys are one of 9 localities that make up our region. Our mission is to lead the transformation of the early childhood system by building regional partnerships and capacity for change. Why is early childhood important? It is important because if we invest early, then our children are our future. We have to invest in them now in order for them to be productive, learning citizens. And we know that this is a quote from James Heckman, who is a Nobel laureate in economics, that early childhood development is perhaps the strongest investment we can make, because as I said, our children are our future, and they don't start learning in kindergarten at 5, so we have to invest early. This chart gives you an idea of how much our babies are learning from the time they're born to the time that they're 2 years old. My colleague likes to make the joke, this explains the terrible twos, why there's so much busyness going on, and why our 2-year-olds can take our cell phones and swipe their fingers across it, and they mimic exactly what they see. The remote controls and telephones are their most attractive toys, and this is why, because they're constantly learning. It's a great return on investment. Some years back, it was a 7-to-1 investment, and now the economics professor here is stating that we're a 13-to-1 return on investment when we invest early in our children. Our history of collaboration, Smart Beginnings is one of 17 Smart Beginnings communities across the state, in partnership with the Chamber RVA, where our organization is housed, as well as United Way of Greater Richmond and Petersburg. The Virginia Early Childhood Foundation, VECF, is the statewide agency on early childhood, and we are one of 17. Some of the statistics you have in your booklet, I think there was a piece of paper passed around for your county specific with this, but these are regional stats you see here up on the monitor regarding children that come from low-income families and how that trend has trended up. The growth in our parents, all parents working outside of the home, has increased since our last plan back in 2010. And then the increase in non-English speaking families, Hispanic speaking families, has definitely increased over the last few years. And you can see some of the statistics there that are pertinent directly to Powhatan and why this issue is important and how things have changed over the last few years. We refer to this as an eye chart. If you need to see it up closer, it's page 23 in your booklet. But this explains the complexity of the early childhood system. As you can see, with the child in the center, a family, for those of us who have access to resources and who are somewhat knowledgeable about how to, that you have to go to a pediatrician certain times throughout your baby's life, that there's health and social services and community and family all make up this complexity of the early childhood system. But for someone from an impoverished neighborhood or someone who doesn't have access to resources, this can be a very, very complex and difficult system to navigate. And that is why Smart Beginnings, serving as the backbone for the early childhood system, convening together schools and libraries, as well as your daycare providers, to bring these folks together to say, what do we need to do and how we can all work together to make sure families and children are being served. So our regional plan process, what you're holding there was a process over about 10 months of lots of due diligence, lots of meetings, over 110 partners contributing their voice to what we will go over today with our 4 goals that make up the plan. Over 260 individuals participated in, as I said, over 10 months of meetings, 22 different meetings that took place. So we went through a lot of research and analysis. Then we engaged our partners to hear their voice. And what you have there is the publication. And what you hear now is our going around to the region, sharing the message of the importance of early childhood, but not just that, to showcase how the folks in Powhatan contributed to what you're seeing there. Smart Beginnings vision. We have a vision that all children from birth through 5 will be healthy, well cared for, and ready to succeed in school, work, and life. As you know, early childhood is not a right now, it's not just a future workforce issue, it's a right now workforce issue. Because as you and I know, we have colleagues and coworkers and friends, and we employ people who have families every day. And if they don't have a strong support and quality early childhood to care for those children, then they can't be quality employees, because family is so important to all of us. And it's a future workforce because, as I mentioned with the James Heckman slide, if we invest early, we know that we will reap those benefits later in life because our children will be ready to succeed. We have 5 core values here that you can see: quality, family, partnership, equality, and responsibility. I'm going to bring up Rich now to walk you through each of the 4 goals of the regional plan and talk to you just a little bit about some of our success measures.
Thank you, Monica. Good evening, everyone, and thank you again for the opportunity to be here to present this plan. And as Monica said, it really does represent about a year's worth of work from partners all across the region. I would say Powhatan County Public Schools were a big partner in this work. and really want to applaud them and the contributions they made. And when we are out presenting to the different jurisdictions, one thing we like to point out is, this isn't necessarily Smart Beginnings plan. This really is the regional plan and represents extensive input from so many of our partners. So, we're just very proud of the work that went into it and what the partnership has created in terms of its vision for school readiness. And I also do want to, again, point out Ms. Jackie Stewart over here with Richmond Regional Planning District Commission. Jackie serves on one of our key committees that has worked to develop this plan. And so she represents really hundreds of volunteers who have worked so hard to bring together this regional plan. So what you'll see, and I won't take a lot of your time, but really it's divided into 4 key goal areas. And there are different success measures that are attached to each of those. So I'm just going to run through these very quickly. I'm not going to go over every one of them specifically, but would like to invite you, as you do review the plan and have some time to think about it, we would love to engage with you and deepen our partnership if you have different questions about the plan and some of the things that we hope to achieve. We kind of see this as the beginning point, the launch of this plan, and we know that for it to be successful, it's going to take many, many partners to make this happen. So this first goal really is around greater awareness and enrollment, and what that means. One of the things that Smart Beginnings has been working on and continues to work on is just raise the level of awareness of what happens in birth to 5, that 90% of the brain develops before children even reach kindergarten. So we know that 0 to 5 time in their life is critical, as Monica has pointed out. So, if we're doing our job with our partners, when the children come to kindergarten, they're going to be ready to learn and ready to succeed. So again, we know that is critical. We know the parent engagement is critical. We know that we need to amplify that message that parents are their child's first and most important teacher, and that learning begins as soon as they are born. And they absorb this information very quickly. So one example that Smart Beginnings has played over the past several years is its partnership, and also here in Powhatan, is with the kindergarten registration campaign. That's something that we've done very successfully in promoting a single registration date in the spring for all of our school systems. 15 school divisions across our footprint all participate, including Powhatan. So that's the kind of public awareness that I think the strength that the partnership brings and that Smart Beginnings can help to amplify those messages about early childhood. The other piece of this is just understanding of what quality means. It's not babysitting. It's a very sophisticated network of quality childcare providers that we need to build out. Virginia Quality is the quality improvement system that's in place in Virginia that childcare providers can participate in to engage and increase their level of quality. The second goal is around, it's called collaborative and intentional pathways. And what this means is, through the planning process, we've heard from our partners loud and clear that there really needs to be better coordination between the entire birth to 5 spectrum moving into the public school system, that too often the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing, and that we can do a much better job in coordinating with our partners so that when a child arrives at kindergarten, there's a more comprehensive understanding of the services that child has received. It's almost, we're looking at piloting, it would be very much like a healthcare coordination model. And again, the partnership said, we don't have anything like that exists in the early childhood network. So that's something that this goal seeks to do. And then the third is around policy alignment and public will. Again, one thing that Virginia Early Childhood Foundation, which we are a part of, and the Smart Beginnings networks across the state have really worked hard to engage our lawmakers, our legislators on both sides of the aisle to help them understand why early childhood matters, why this investment is so critical. And that's, again, a role that we play and a strength that we bring to the table to engage folks in the conversation, to help them understand that those early investments really do pay off. And when you think about the costs for incarceration, for repeat grades, in Virginia, 3rd grade, by that time, it cost the state $78 million in repeat grades. So just that one data point demonstrates if we can really make progress in just that one area, the money that could be saved. And then again, just the public will, the understanding of early childhood and why the investments are so important. And then the fourth goal is really around organizational and professional capacity. And this speaks to both the individuals who are practicing and are professionals in early childhood, as well as the organizations themselves. identifying where capacity needs to be built. We know at some of our other Smart Beginnings partners, particularly in rural communities, access and to or quality childcare is so critical, and finding that. One thing, our Dr. Gary Rhodes with Reynolds Community College, he serves on our board, and he points this out and articulates it very well, that, you know, when you move to a new community and you ask about the K-12 system, people are pretty knowledgeable about that. They understand where the schools are, and they get that system. But if you ask somebody about the early childhood system, I mean, you get a very different response. So it just speaks to the necessity of a better coordinated system. And then just kind of where we are just out and getting in front of all of the jurisdictions that we serve in the region. And we have just a few more to go, and just asking for resolutions of support, so that we would like to come out later this summer to announce that 100% of our jurisdictions understand that this is a very important issue. They support this plan, and that we are all in partnership together. So that's kind of the process that we're in the middle of right now. So that includes not just the jurisdictions, but getting in front of corporations, getting in front of boards of nonprofits. So another thing I would like to make is, if there are folks here in Powhatan that you would like us to present this plan to, we would be very eager to do that. Again, Monica had said, we know it's a workforce development issue. We'd love to get in front of the Powhatan Chamber of Commerce. Chamber RVA is very supportive of our work. We are actually housed at the chamber. And again, as Monica said, they understand it's a workforce issue, not only for the workforce of tomorrow, but the workforce of today. And then finally, your partnership, as I mentioned, we are seeking resolutions of support from our local partners, as well as champions. Help us amplify this message and educate folks about early childhood and why this is so important to our communities and our region. And then we also would like to be able to come back and report to you on our progress, how we're doing against our benchmarks. So we would really appreciate that opportunity. So with that, I hope I didn't go too far over time, but I just wanted to thank you for the opportunity. We do have extra copies of the plan in the back of the room for anybody that would like to take one tonight and take a look at it. But again, there's a lot there. It's a pretty detailed plan. And you know, as folks have questions moving forward, we're happy to come back and talk more about this.
Perfect. Anybody have any questions right out?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
to your point of whom else to do it, I know that the NAACP here in the county has a pillar in its strategic plan that revolves around this issue. And if you give either me or Ms. Gavel a call, we can get you the name and telephone number of the president.
Okay.
I'm sure they would like to hear. And secondly, Mr. Chairman, might I ask Andrew to give us a thumbnail sketch of what's going on at Little Zion and how it connects?
Yes, Smart Beginnings is going to make a presentation at the Hands Across Powhatan meeting in August, which is going to be right before Little Zion is going to be opening their new preschool. And we also want the relationship to grow moving forward with Little Zion. This sort of came to our attention just recently. I've heard this presentation at the CRC and the RRPDC and had a lot of questions, because I was disappointed to see that Powhatan lags behind the regional average in the, I always say this incorrectly, PALS score. We're not far behind, but that's a score of readiness when children enter kindergarten, and our Powhatan children are behind. And we are behind in this in Powhatan, in my opinion. Your statistics to me are very interesting in that we only have 85 spots for Head Start when we have 1,100 children that are that age. And we only have 12 private child care programs here. And what I'm interested in learning more about is Virginia Quality, because I see none of those private programs are Virginia Quality, which is a voluntary program. And I'm sure that I know some of those. My own child went through a program that's excellent. So we just need to communicate this information with them, and I look forward to helping you do that and helping Little Zion become that, because I wholeheartedly agree that it is a huge return on your investment.
Yeah. And where there are opportunities like that to engage, just one example I'll point to is we'd like to thank our superintendent here in Powhatan, and across the Region 1, we were able to get access to PALS K data at the individual school level for the first time. We've never had this before. And what we're using that for is with Virginia Quality to look at specific schools that maybe are not doing as well as others to try and better target where we need to deploy those resources. So just that's a partnership that we really want to acknowledge and thank, because that really helps us to look at this much more strategically. Than it's a lot harder at a county level. When you were able to drill down, you can really get in there and see where you need to intervene and make those resources available.
Right, these statistics do show that Powhatan's doing a great job. Once the children are in school, we are above the regional average for third grade, but we need to do some work before they get there.
Thank you.
Yeah, first of all, Rick and Monica, thank you. I like this pamphlet thing that jumps out at me in the business world. You've got your strategies, but then you've got your success measures. So I look forward to seeing the success measures at a later date. As you say, you're going to grade yourself, you're going to hold yourself accountable, and you're going to say you've got some targets here on improving some things. The thing that jumped out at me was reach. On your regional averages, it was 10% of you reaching out to your family. We had 0 families. We had 63 families supposedly that were able, estimated families that qualify for home visit services, 63. We had 0 done. So that's just wrong. So we do need a better job of communicating in this and making sure that our constituents and citizens know what's available to them.
And that's a great point, and one of the things we want to do is make home visitation available to more counties, and because for some, that's not available at all.
Mr.
Thank you.
Chairman, one more comment,
Yes.
sorry.
Oh, you're fine.
This should be also made to the Social Services Board. And, again, Angie or I can help you with making it a submodule of the responsible parenting program that Little Zion puts on for fathers. I think it would be enlightening for them too to figure out what their roles are with some statistics behind what happens to the young brains if it's not touched early on. I think it would be very helpful to them to hear that.
Yeah, we would love that opportunity, and one thing that you'll see in the plan is the call for more parent engagement at not only the direct service level, but really at a policy systems level, so that we are engaging with the General Assembly and getting those parent voices there at the table, so that we're making policy that makes sense.
Kind of alarming when you see 71% of the families that have children 0 to 5 are working. So,
Yeah.
that's, thank you again.
Thank
Mr.
you all for
Norvig,
this
you've got a
opportunity.
proclamation you're going to handle for us?
Gather round so that the newspaper and everybody can get a good picture. Again, are you going to take the picture? You're going to take the picture of them taking a picture, is that?
That would be great. That would be great. Thank you.
Well, we'll do the picture first. Good. First of all, thanks for coming out to Powhatan. I know sometimes you need a passport to show to come all the way out here. I'm also on the PDC, and I've seen the full presentation. It was brand new, I think that day maybe even, and it was extremely enlightening. Folks, I know from personal experience that this works. My parents put me in kindergarten when I was only 4 years old, and I still have memories of kindergarten. I remember laying down and taking a nap for an hour, and to this day, I still have the habit pattern of sleeping in class. It works. This stuff works. I have a proclamation to read on behalf of the board. It reads from the County of Powhatan, proclamation supporting the regional plan for school readiness 2017 to 2020. Whereas in the earliest years, from birth through age 5, children rapidly absorb information, their brains developing at an exceptional rate unmatched in any other period of life. And whereas providing infants and young children with supportive, nurturing relationships and enriching environments during this critical phase of development helps put them on a path to success in later years. And whereas decades of education and public health research demonstrate that timely assistance to families with infants and young children has a lifelong impact on not only the child, but also on the child's family and community. And whereas quality early childhood services can reduce socioeconomic and health disparities between children of different backgrounds and provide a stronger foundation for a healthier start. And whereas there are more than 1,500 children in Powhatan County from birth to 5 years old, and 70.9% of the parents of those children are in the labor force. And whereas the Smart Beginnings Greater Richmond Partnership of more than 110 organizations has raised awareness about the importance of the early years and leveraged resources and organizing power to create more opportunities for families to support a healthy start for their children. And whereas numerous agencies and partners contributed to this plan, including Powhatan Public Schools and other early childhood for-profit and nonprofit partners serving Powhatan County. And whereas the regional plan for school readiness 2017 to 2020 builds on the premise that a strong start for children of all incomes is good for the economic vitality and well-being of Powhatan County and the region. And whereas the regional plan for school readiness 2017 to 2020 is inspired by the vision that all children from birth through age 5 in the Richmond region will be healthy, well cared for, and ready to succeed in school, work, and life. Now therefore be it proclaimed that the Powhatan County Board of Supervisors supports the regional plan for school readiness 2017 to 2020 and recognizes the Powhatan County early childhood programs and partnerships that contributed to the development of this new regional plan to advance school readiness in Powhatan County and throughout the region. And this is adopted by the Powhatan County Board of Supervisors on June 26, 2017. Mr. Chairman, I put that forward in the form of a motion.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion as presented?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Thank you all.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Monica, congratulations. I'm going to hand this one to you.
Okay.
And you can get other signed copies from the county. Just get a hold of me.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, it's now 7, a little after 7. We'll move on to our first public hearing, time certain 7 p.m. Item 12A, R 2017-43, a resolution amending the FY 2018 county operating budget by budgeting and appropriating $3.4 million from the 5-year capital improvement. Should we discuss the capital improvement plan first? We didn't do that in old business, but
That's how we did have it set up on the
I know.
agenda, so
I know.
we're certainly happy to do that, however you'd like to.
the board, I know we normally start these right at 7, but we missed item 9, let me get back to my notes here. 9D, which was the adopting the FY 2018 capital improvement plan and other capital.
And I'd certainly recommend that we do put that on the table for you by going through that
Okay.
first. Mhm.
Okay, we will hold a public hearing on that. We'll try to go through this one and then do the public hearing, because I think they're tied together, and it's kind of thoughts from the rest of the board. David?
What are you proposing? Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
That we don't open the public hearing yet, that we go through 9D, which is tied directly to the capital improvement plan. It was a presentation we were going to go through and see. Kind of hard to go and approve $3.4 million until we've gone through some of the data that was going to be presented by staff. We could, if we hold the public hearing, then we go through the information, then it's kind of after the fact, in my eyes. Your thoughts?
We should do the flow the way it makes sense. I think we should.
More of 9D with 9E, there needs to be some discussion. I asked for this before, twice.
Okay. So you want to do both before the are we?
I want to discuss
Okay.
9E, the appropriation of the money specifically for the courthouse annex.
Okay. Well, then you probably don't want to hold a public hearing yet on $3.4 million, do you? Do you want to handle both of them before we do the public hearing?
Well,
In fairness?
9E authorizes the county administrator, and if we choose not to do that, what we do on the other one doesn't matter.
Okay.
If we don't authorize the expenditure. I'm not saying we're going that route, I just want to have the discussion.
Other board members? David?
So Carson, if I understand, you want to have the discussion on the resolution for the courthouse, and the reason you want to have that in advance of the CIP is to understand whether or not the CIP could be changed as a result of that discussion. Is that correct?
Right.
I agree.
So we'll hold the public hearing. We're gonna actually work through 9D and E, and I apologize for the public, but we're gonna do that before we vote on the public hearing. So Ted, I'm gonna all right, Charlotte, you gonna go through 9D first?
Yes.
I think we have a copy, updated copy on our desk.
Yes, there's some amended pages to your previous CIP manual that you got that you received during the budget workshop session, because there's not a lot that has changed to it. So what has changed is we've pushed the smart water technology out a year, per Ramona's request, and I mean, she can speak to that and if she'd like, but we moved it out because Chesterfield is going out, I believe, for bid next year. And we want to be able to use those monies for additional needs for the courthouse expansion. So we've moved that out to 19, and then the 200,000 that was for smart water is now in with the courthouse expansion. And there was additional 106,000 of capital maintenance reserve based on the estimates we had given. That didn't change, we just put that towards courthouse expansion. So we'll have a contingency for the courthouse. Other than that, nothing has changed on the capital improvement program since we held the public hearing on April 17th. And the workshops, I believe it was in March 20th and 22nd, where we discussed it in detail.
Any questions of staff on the documents presented to us? I think they were again, very similar to the April, few minor changes. I have.
In total, it did not change.
Right. Questions? Larry?
No, this starts to dovetail into the conversation that Carson wants to have, so I'm kind of keeping my powder dry.
Okay, so here's what I'm gonna suggest. There's a resolution here to adopt this. I'm gonna wait for a vote on that till after we have a conversation on 9E. What do you think?
I concur.
Tom, you okay with that? Okay. All right, we'll now move on to 9E, Resolution R 2017-50, authorizing the county administrator to execute a contract with the lowest responsive responsible offer to the IFP 2017-05 Powhatan County Historic Courthouse expansion upon county attorney approval, found on page 95. And is, Ramona, you taking this?
Yes, sir.
Okay, it's found on page 95 of your packets.
In the presentation that you find in your packet, the first couple pages is some color renderings of the courthouse expansion. And I apologize, these were presented to us late last year, and they were never presented to the board or to the public, and I'm not sure why they weren't, but a lot of people were concerned about what it was actually going to look like. So I think this gives everybody a really good picture of what it's going to look like and how it blends in with the historic nature of the courthouse.
Okay.
So, yeah, that's the back view. The large door is the sally port, the exit, and you can actually see on the side of it, there's the entrance. So it's a one-way in and out for the sally port. And there's the top view, which really shows how the new expansion blends in with the roof lines of the existing structure. If we were trying to do just a single story, it wouldn't blend in as well. So I think the architects did a really good job of blending this in and making it blend in with the aesthetics of the courthouse. So in the presentation, we're going to go through the existing conditions, and then Tom's going to cover a needs assessment, why we needed this. And there was some work done before this went to design on, there was some surveys sent out to various stakeholders to make sure that it met the needs that they needed. And then we're going to look at, there was some options considered. In the past, they had asked us to evaluate several other places as alternatives to building an expansion on the courthouse. And then we're going to cover how the design meets the needs that were identified. And then I'm going to go over the bid results and the budget, and then we'll have a recommendation. So I'm going to turn it over to Tom.
I may have to adjust this a little bit, yeah. That's okay. Sure, you can leave that there. Oh, no problem. The existing conditions, currently, what you're looking at now is the land mobile radio equipment room and the 911 recording equipment. There's two different closets. Those closets now have served us through quite a few years. Unfortunately, there's difficult to heat. We have a lot of fluctuation in there. We have some other ventilation issues, and we have some spikes in the temperature that could be very dangerous to that equipment. More importantly, though, as we move forward with the new LMR equipment in the next 18 to 20 months, we have a need, a significant need for more space that we don't have now. It's four more racks, $100,000 worth of equipment, if not more, is stored in these rooms that needs proper ventilation and also room. We don't have it here. There is no place to put that equipment. 4 7-foot racks that would involve additional equipment, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of equipment. And there's also some issues and questions about ventilation spikes that could delve into a warranty on the manufacturer and vendors. That could be, I have had those discussions in the past, and having a proper ventilation room is very important. Mr. Green mentioned earlier about work environment. What you're looking here at is just 3 of the 3 dispatchers, communication officers. That particular person on the far left is working on the VSIN terminal. The VSIN terminal allows us, the main terminal allows us to enter into information into this state network. We also have some situations where we're in a training environment. It's very tight quarters. Many of the conversations you have when it comes to different types of events, you can have that situation where we heard Mr. Crumpler talk about the person with the sprained ankle versus the person with a heart attack. Those conversations carry over on top of each other. Sometimes it's very difficult to distinguish between what you're working on. It's important to have some separation, some soundproofing. We don't have that now. We don't have that separation. We should have it. The opportunity for additional spikes in heating also affects the floor. When you have that much equipment on the floor, computers, monitors, everything from the server racks, everything floats into that room, and that room can be 70 degrees or 79 degrees. Often these fluctuations causes problems. What we're looking at here is workload. In 2016, obviously Sheriff Nunley and his staff took over. There was a significant increase, you can see, in the number of traffic stops. Traffic stops, as a law enforcement officer for 28 years, I know traffic stops are very, very potentially dangerous. It's one of the highest potential risks to an officer. We have officers and deputies that are out there on these traffic stops that need dedicated resources. They should be paying attention to exactly what's going on that radio channel. One of the things we have now in that situation is that we have a walk-up window, and where citizens are able to knock on the window. It served its purpose. However, that's a distraction. We have those issues where people are talking on top of each other and the space utilization. But this workload shows a significant increase. There's also a significant increase in the courts, 33% increase in court dockets. All of this translates to more work on each and every individual dispatcher. The projection is another 5% growth, and you can see how that's spiking up each year. What I'm saying is that we need more space, more chairs. Prisoner movement. Want to continue? Okay. Prisoner movement, I understand that from some of the surveys, and then we'll look at the middle, the juvenile court judge. Basically, it's not secure. The judge, window behind bench. Incarcerated juveniles do not have the privacy they should have when transporting prisoners and juvenile prisoners from the drop-off point into the courtroom. This is a critical area. I can tell you that I'm aware in the city of Richmond of escapees and also situations where arrestee and family members come to that point. Anytime you have exposure of prisoners, I think an opportunity to have a closed confined area, secure area, is a benefit to everyone. Needs assessment. At this point, I think, Ramona? Okay, I'll keep going. Much of it is a recap of what I already said, but I'll go over it again. The LMR, land mobile radio equipment, space needs. We're looking at the CAD equipment, of course, putting in a nice air-conditioned, properly ventilated room. Delaying the courthouse expansion will result in the purchase of new equipment with no place to place it. I think also importantly, right now we have a synergy, an opportunity to work within the existing courthouse footprint in that we have the warrant section, we have the VSIN terminals, and we have close proximity to the workload from the courts and from the sheriff's office. That's important. It's opportunity for us in this current system, this design, whereby an officer in the street who makes an arrest at 2 o'clock in the morning can come to the Sally Port with one person, nobody else, and that person can pull in securely, and we can deliver that warrant in hand to them through a tube or walk it down to that person. That's the synergy that I see as a benefit, and the greatest benefit, proximity to the work. And that's where this courthouse expansion provides us. It will meet our needs. It will opportunity to have for essentially up to eight council positions. When Floyd Green looked at his surveys from different counties, he looked at counties that had up to 40,000 population. In that 40,000 population, they had or were about to design 6 to 8 positions. That would be double our capacity, and that allowed us to move forward for years to come. Now it is my time to step down.
This mic down again. I'm just going to go back one slide. At the very bottom of that slide, it says, based on the population growths, the new 911 center will serve the needs of the citizens of Powhatan for the next 10 years. At one time, they were talking about 2 to 5 years, 5 to 7 years, but based on what Tom was just saying about the population growth in the 40,000, we think that this space will serve the dispatch center for the next 10 years. So in this section, I just took some quotes directly out of the surveys that were sent out to the various people. So Judge Sella, in his survey, he said an enclosed area for loading and unloading prisoners would improve our interaction with the Sheriff's Department and other security staff, such as the Department of Corrections. And then Judge Southall, which he was really concerned with the movement of the juveniles through the public space. He said juveniles are brought through the main courtroom and then through the public area, which is actually shared with the circuit court, and then they're finally brought into the hearing room. And then Sheriff Neal said that they need a secure enclosed area with 2 garage doors access for entrance and exit to deter backing out, secure holding area for staging inmates, intercoms and cameras in all secure areas. And then Chief Singer said the 911 center has been recommended for enhancement for several years. Financial restraints of the county have not allowed for proper growth, causing the current need for immediate expansion. So now I'm going to look at the options that they looked at to actually expanding and building on. And I'm going to kind of spend a little bit of time on this slide. And the 4 that are listed here are the 4 main ones. And in the next page, we cover some other things that were considered, but they were ruled out very early on. So the first thing that they considered was reworking the existing space in the basement, taking out some walls and moving offices around. The benefit to that was that it doesn't require additional telephone feeds, and it is in close proximity to the sheriff's offices. However, on the con side, there's a wall that they identified, a point load on one of those walls, and it was a load-bearing wall, actually from the roof, that can't be moved. So they would have had to work around that. There was no additional equipment storage. It did not provide for 6 to 8 consoles, and it did not provide for the Sally Port security. And the public still has that direct access through the customer service window. and the 911 has to remain operational during the movement. So if they were moving those offices around, we still would only have those one telephone feed, so people would be working dispatch around while they were moving equipment and walls. And so the next thing they looked at was the village building, the basement of this building. And they decided that it could accommodate the 6 to 8 consoles, but there were several negative things with moving to that location, this location. It wasn't close to the sheriff's office. There's significant electrical and HVAC upgrades to this building. We would require a generator here. We would need new telephone and backup feeds. Again, it doesn't have the Sally port. There's no fire protection, and it would require significant security upgrades. And then there was the courthouse expansion, which is what we're proposing in this presentation. It does have the Sally port security and improved dispatch area. Improvements to the JDR courtroom and the prisoner movement. It's easily converted, the space is easily converted in the future to a courtroom or other space if we decide that a courtroom isn't needed at that time. It's very close to the sheriff's office, and we can, in the movement, it's very easy for us to relocate from one spot to the other. And it keeps, as in your strategic action plan or strategic plan, you wanted to keep business in the village area to promote business and keep people in the area and working in the area. And this would kind of serve that because it would keep the courts and everything in the village area. Now, the negative parts were the property is very challenging because we can only get so much expansion onto the courthouse. So it limits the size of the expansion that can be added. It has to match the historic nature of the courthouse, which we think the proposed expansion does. And it's estimated that 10 years it will serve the population until it outgrows that space. And parking is still an issue around the courthouse. Then the last option that they looked at, and this has been proposed in the CIP for many years, was a separate public safety building. Again, we can there's no limit to the footprint. We can put multiple departments in there. The big drawback to that one was the cost of it. And it was estimated in 2016 at $11 million. That's probably an old estimate now. It's probably going to be more than that. So then on the next page, this was just some other things that they looked at, but they ruled them out because they said that if they modified the space, it would take over what the space was intended for. So they talked about taking over Company 1 and Company 2, the administration building, but all of those options, it took over the main operation that was intended for. And there was also been some discussion about using the old middle school, but the cost of renovating and hardening that facility was cost prohibitive. And there's also the distance from the courthouse and the sheriff's department. In looking at the design that's proposed for the expansion, I'm just going to go over the things that it covers in our needs assessment. So it does have the 2 garage doors, entry and exit one way, like the sheriff had requested. It does have the secure prisoner movement. The second floor matches and as you've seen in the color renderings, it matches the historical nature of the building. It provides plenty of space for the LMR and CAD equipment. The transition is easier due to the telephone feeds. It's easier to move the facilities across there. Improved working condition for the dispatchers. It's more spaced out, and we have 6 to 8 consoles that we can fit in that space. It's improved security for the judges' chambers. It increases the size of the juvenile domestic relations courtroom. It provides ability to convert the space to a courtroom or other use in the future. And the funding is available to immediately correct deficiencies. If we had a standalone building, we wouldn't be able to fund it for several years in the future, and then we would have all this new equipment coming in that we would have no place to house it. All right, now the bad news, the bid results. We only received 2 bids on this, and part of that was just because the construction industry has picked up, and we had the architect contact several people that picked up plans to ask why they never submitted bids, and they said they were just too busy, they just had too much work. So we had 2 companies that bid. The low bid was Daniel and Company, which is the contractor that is doing the bus garage. And their bid was, with their alternates, was $3,144,000. Structural Engineering Group, which we didn't have any experience with, and neither did the architect, their bid came in at $3,700,779. So we did the reference checks and all of the, on Daniel and Company, because they were the low bidder, and all their references came back that they would highly recommend them. We also talked with Russell Wilson with the schools, and he said that he's been very happy with them. They're on budget and on schedule. So the budget that was allocated for this project, for the construction part of it, was $2.4 million. So you can see our low bid is quite a bit over budget. We actually added in here, so the low bid was $3,144,000, but we wanted to add in contingency because it's an old building. We don't know what's in the ground, and we're anticipating that we're going to come across some unexpected things. So they recommend a 10 to 15% contingency on a project this size. So $400,000 would be 12.7%. That would be ideal, but as you can see in this breakdown, we couldn't quite get to 12.7%. But our total cost is $3,544,000. So where we're proposing to get that money from is, when I talked to you before, the water tower came in under budget. So we're proposing to take $773,635 from the water tower. And then Charla had mentioned that we were proposing to delay the Smart Technologies. Smart Technologies is the radio read meters. And we're delaying that because Chesterfield is actually taking on the same project, and they said that they would write in collaborative wording so that we could write on their contract and get a better price because of the volume that they'll be getting. And then Charla also mentioned the capital maintenance project savings, which was $106,000. So that gives us total funds, if we transfer all that money, of $3,479,635, which would give us a contingency of 10.6%. So I went back to the architect and asked them why the low bid was so much over their estimated construction cost. In March, they did an estimate, and it came back at $2,537,462.51. But they went back and looked at, because they use a separate company to do the construction estimating, and they said there was some items that the complete specifications weren't in there. One was the security cameras and the access doors and access control. The full package wasn't in there. They didn't tell us that ahead of time, but after they told us that the complete package wasn't submitted to the estimators. They also said that the site was very challenging because of the stormwater retention that had to be done. And all of the materials that they excavate have to be moved off the site. So it's a really tight space for construction. They said the market has increased 8%. From when they gave us their estimate to now, just because of the construction industry. And we only received 2 bids. So. And they did contact the other 3 companies that took out plans, and they were just too busy. So our recommendation.
More questions as we're going?
Yeah, I'm at the recommendation, so.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Would you repeat what you said about the cooperation between Chesterfield and us?
Oh,
Tell
on
me
the-
what that was about, because that's a new one for me, I think.
Oh, on the smart meters, which is the radio read meters, we had in the budget, and we wanted to do it now because we have few customers, so we thought the cost was going to increase in the future to do those meters. But when we were talking with Chesterfield, they said they're doing a similar project. They're going to radio read meters. So they said that they weren't going to do that until next year, and they said, well, we could write some collaborative wording into our contract that would let us write on their contract. So it would let us get the meters, because they have many more meters than us, so the price is lower per unit, that they would let us write on their contract.
And that number was?
106,000.
No, that was 200,000.
200.
2,000, excuse me, I apologize.
All right, thank you, I got it.
Okay.
So our recommendation is that we award the contract and proceed on the current schedule, as it will coincide with the LMR and the CAD projects, and we proposed the funding for the difference between the low bid.
Any questions of staff at this time? Carson?
Not questions of staff, comments.
Okay. Larry, any questions of staff?
I do. Thanks, Mr. Chairman. How could you tell?
You just stated earlier you wanted to.
Yes, thank you. I want to back up, and I'm trying to ask this in a neutral way, I guess. In March, it was 2.7 million. In March of this year.
It was
And
2.5.
Okay, 2.5,
yeah.
sorry. So 2.5 million in March of this year, and we're sitting here in June, and it's now 3.5 million. That's a heck of a markup even at Walmart. You talked about it, but I want to make sure, how did the specs of the doors and et cetera that you listed here, why was that not known again?
Well, and actually, it's not 3.5, because we had 400,000 in there for
Contingency,
contingency.
right.
So it's actually 3.1.
Still,
So,
that's a lot. So I'm trying to get a feel for, that's a heck of a difference. And, we met the other day, we had a meeting, and that somehow did not sink in during that meeting. So can you explain that one to me? Because I have a feeling that people who are watching or who are here are definitely going to want to know the answer to that question.
I think that was a very small piece of the difference. I think the biggest difference was, or the reason for the difference was because contractors are busy and they just don't have time to do the work. So you get, and that was the real difference between the low bid and the high bid. There was $600,000 difference, is because you don't get as competitive bids when they know that there's only a couple people bidding on it.
So then comes the follow-up question that I know I'm going to get, and that is, oh, so they lowballed the bid and then jacked it up, saying, oh, we're so busy, we're going to raise the price. Is that accurate?
The same company didn't bid it. The architects were the one that
Right.
put the 2.537 million out in an estimated cost of building the project. 8% increase, which is $203,000, was because the market changed, because we didn't put the bid out as quickly as we anticipated because of the design changes that were being required for the judges. Then we missed stormwater, they underestimated stormwater management, and they added laydown area and temporary parking to the price. Why they weren't in there, we could debate all day long. But,
Well, I
and then
think-
we added the rest of the project, we added 400,000 or 335,000 as a proposal, 335 or $336,000 for contingency, which I think is a good thing because we are dealing with an old building. Hopefully, maybe we hold this close to our hand and hold them very accountable. We won't have to spend the 335, but we should allow for it in my eyes. So,
Contingency funding is smart, and I don't disagree with that part at all. That 8% is not that's a true increase in just those short months, correct?
According to the engineers.
So if you
yes,
annualize
architects.
that, that's a lot. And
And
I think, Mr. Chairman, you hit on one of the salient points here, and that is why didn't we get the whole package at first? Why weren't the other things included? Because when you're pitched a project and you're given a price tag, you make a decision based on a myriad of things. And I kind of, personally, like I said, I'm trying to ask this in a neutral way. I'm not trying to point a finger at anybody, but, when you come to a board of supervisors and you say, here's what we're going to get, this is how much it costs, and a few months later, it's radically different, I just don't think that's a good way to do business, and I'm not pointing that at you, Ramona.
Some of the changes in the security that weren't in the whole package was because we had to add the judges' chambers into the expansion. That wasn't in there before.
Okay.
So when you move those judges' chambers into the expansion, now you have additional security on all the doors because you have to protect them. So that added some cameras. It added card control, access control on doors, on the elevators, things like that. So-
Okay, well, thank you for saying that, because that is an issue in that courthouse, and I've been aware of that for about 2.5 years, and we do need to, unfortunately, in the year 2017, we need to be thinking about security for judges and that sort of thing, and I'm totally on board with that. So it's not that I'm against some of the things that I'm hearing, the items, it's the fact that I didn't hear them before. But I have a second question, Mr. Chairman, and that is the timing. I don't know if Tom, I don't know if Ramona, whoever wants to answer this one, or 18 months, I think you said, Tom. I was trying to look through the slides to see it. Is that when all the new equipment's in, or is that just the CAD system, or?
No, the opportunity for the LMR equipment should be around 18 to 20 months, and the purchasing, hopefully the contract, the RFP will be out later this October,
Okay.
early November. And then from that time schedule, we have some delivery dates projected, and those delivery dates are the 18 to 20 months out. And that the site developments, the backhaul, the microwave networking, all that has to be in place and tested. And what Ms. Ramona was talking about was the opportunity to have this simultaneously have the existing system, the legacy system that's outdated and needs to be replaced, but have that working while we have the new system going. And that's where we need the space utilization. We can't rip down the one without having the other. But yes, the equipment associated to the PSAP, the 911 center, is about 18 to 20 months on a projected schedule at this time.
So, so if we started from scratch, we have brand-new equipment sitting around doing nothing for who knows how long, right? And
That's my understanding, talking to
that
Ramona and many
throws
others.
off
yeah.
your schedule pretty severely, I'm
Yeah.
thinking?
I would think so, yes, sir, because really, at this point in time, I know Chief Singer and many others have suggested that our equipment needs to be improved. There is some opportunity for us to continue to keep on working with the VHS system, but I also believe we'll have a greater opportunity to move forward with this project with a timeline that's projected with a coinciding of everything we just heard here tonight.
And I also just want to be clear, Ramona, there's a significant cost increase with a delay, correct?
Yes.
Okay. More so than the increase we're looking at now anyway, is that right?
We asked the engineers about that, about delaying it, if there was any benefit to getting more bids in or better bids, and they said that the way the market is, it's just going to increase, so that the price will come, it'll come in higher.
Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Larry. Any other questions or of staff? Any comments?
Mr. Chairman. No one here denies the need for or our commitment to the new radio system, and let's be plain, that's what this project is about. It's about making space for a new radio system. No one denies the need for our commitment to our communications officers. We saw what we did with them earlier on this evening. Staff has made a strong argument, and whatever we decide on this project, I will support it. No second guessing, and I expect staff to adopt a similar attitude if it doesn't go according to their recommendation. We know that we have a 911 load exponential growth. We're convinced. We've seen the numbers. We know that. We put $2.5 million in the capital improvement plan to deal with this problem, or even actually more than that, quite a bit more than that. Now, when I saw the cost overrun, it just triggered something in my mind, and I began to talk to people. I talked to the judges. I talked to both of the clerks. I talked to the sheriff's office again. I talked to the Historical Society, and I talked to Public Works and Finance and staff. So what I'm going to say now is my assimilation of all of the inputs from those sources. We put $11.4 million in the CIP beyond 5 years for the public safety building. The courthouse annex is a 5 to 7 year stopgap for the radio system upgrade. Now we're hearing 10 years. It was 2 to 3, it was 5 to 7, now it's 10 years. The radio system upgrade shortfall is $1.2 million, less than they need to actually do this project. Cost overrun is $744,000 for the courthouse annex. There's $400,000 in sunk costs in A&E for the courthouse annex plan. Sunk cost means the money's gone. So it's, if we choose not to do it, the money's gone. We've wasted it. We've got 7 years to use the funds from our bonds. But the bond proceeds can be used for similar purposes like security at the courthouse, cameras, bulletproof glass, other such things. All parties agree the Sally Port's a good idea to give safety to the prisoners and to the officers bringing the prisoners in. All parties agree we want to keep the county infrastructure as much as possible in the courthouse area. All parties agree we want to do minimum violence to the courthouse historical and the courthouse green. Now that's just a quick data dump. There's a lot more. But here's my concern. I'd like to take a time out for this particular piece of the CIP. I'm ready to vote on the rest of the CIP, adopting the CIP for the 5 years minus the courthouse annex. In the meantime, I'd like, within 6 months, if you could do it in 3 months, fine. If it takes 9 months, so be it. All parties to do a hard pro-con analysis, looking at all the options again, and the timing involved. Absent disagreement tonight, I respectfully request that we put this on a workshop as ASAP.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Williams.
Tom, would you go back up to the podium? Ramona, Ramona, you might as well stand up as well. Ramona, I'm going to start by asking you, is the information, or is any of the information that you presented to us tonight, other than the overrun and the etiology of the overruns that we talked about, is any of this information new to us?
No, it was all done, it was all in the needs assessment and the questionnaires and the meetings that everybody had beforehand.
Because I remember having multiple discussions, workshops on this very issue. Now, one of the things that Mr. Tucker mentioned in his summation, well, didn't mention, was the need to have a place for our dispatchers. That's paramount. Now, everything that you've pointed out about the closeness of the dispatchers, the fact that we have the heat fluctuations, we run the warranty risk with the equipment, all those things we talked about. In fact, we talked about, at one point, back when Floyd was with us, doing an annex from the basement. And we said we didn't want to do that. Mr. Tucker and I, in particular, were opposed to compromising the architectural integrity of the old courthouse. So none of this information is new. Is that correct? You confirm that?
That's correct.
Tom, how important is it to have dispatch with appropriate climate, the appropriate room that they need today to do the job that they do?
Yes, sir. I'm glad you asked that. The opportunity for us to improve and work environment, opportunity for us to have a safe environment for the equipment is paramount because we can't have failure. The equipment can't go down. If we have overheating, the equipment is sensitive. The equipment will go down. And if it does go down, we have some issues.
You've got a space issue as well with additional racks coming.
That's
Is that
right.
correct?
The new equipment and the old equipment and new equipment have to be coexist in one environment or another. So the current equipment will stay where it is. The new equipment will go with the new equipment in the new space, and it's opportunity for us to have proper ventilation and ensure that we have the proper environment for that equipment.
How comfortable are you with the 10-year horizon for this to be able to meet our needs?
Looking at the opportunity to have 8 councils there, looking at the opportunity to have additional space for the environment as far as supervisor space and even a break area, I think that's an opportunity for us to grow and put more people there. And I would hope and I believe that 10 years is very comfortable.
Now, I'm not happy about the additional cost. Now, if I understand what Mr. Melton summarized, a lot of this cost was, you know, and Ramona as well, we had a certain amount of cost for contingency that we hadn't previously factored in. I'm seeing Charlotte shake her head.
That's correct.
That's correct. So cost is cost, right? We're gonna have it. We might not like it, but if that got overlooked, we still have to do it. Is that correct?
Yes. And we put that contingency in there because we didn't want to keep coming back for, you know, 100,000 here and 100,000 there, that we could, you know, we'd have it covered if something unexpected came up.
And then we had the delays due to the judges making changes, which also contributed to the cost, not only with us be able to go forward, you know, with bidding this, but actually added to the cost of the bids that came in. Is that correct?
That's correct. And it delayed the timeline so that we were in high season for construction as well.
Stay where you're at right now. This question is for Charlotte or for Ted. I don't care who handles the question, but how much did it cost us to go to market to borrow this money?
Oh, gosh, you're asking me. Are you talking about like our actual
No, we made
issuance
this
cost?
decision. We said we were going to borrow. We went out for the 54.5 million.
Correct.
We said 2.6 million was going to be for the courthouse expansion. That was the decision by the majority of the board. So my question is, what did it cost us to go to market to do the borrowing for this? You know, what do we have to pay Davenport, et cetera?
The issuance cost. It was 900,000 for the issuance cost. That's for everything, underwriter, the whole deal.
How much have we paid for drawings, for engineerings, renderings?
400.
400,000.
All right, so that's another 400,000. What would happen to the money? If we don't use it for this, what would happen to the money? It would, you know, is it like Carson said, it could be used, but maybe on a scaled-down basis for the courthouse on other things? Is that?
It can be used for other projects that were already in the issuance, such as the radio system. You can also pay back for capitalized interest during construction. They don't recommend defeasing the 2.4 million because then you have penalties involved. So we wouldn't want to do that. We wouldn't want to give that portion back because there's actually penalties and it's not economically feasible to do that. You can also revise your resolution if you had other projects to include them. So there is ways of using it, but you have lost the money that you've already spent on the current project.
Now, the Fed just raised interest rates. And I saw again on the news, I think it was in Wall Street Journal, it's been pretty well known that the Fed has a plan to continue to raise interest rates going forward. So we know the cost of money is not going to get cheaper. It's going to probably, in all probability, it's going to get more expensive. So, albeit we've had some missteps along the way, some of which, you know, can't directly be tracked back to staff or to anything that, you know, maybe we did intentionally or anything like that. So my recommendation is going to be that we go forward. Now, when we made the decision, we did the decision with plenty of discussion. Going back to what I asked Ramona, all this information was discussed that we're discussing tonight. So my recommendation, Mr. Chairman, is going to be that we go forward.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Any other comments?
Just a quick follow-up. David, I mostly agree. Not everything was known at the time, like the 8% market increase, for example, but that's not.
The 8%, what, Mr. Roy, the marketing fee or the increase?
Yeah, the increase.
Okay.
So, you know, there are a few changes, so I basically agree with you. We hammered this out, and that's your point. So I agree. There are some new twists, though.
I have a comment. So, Mr. Tucker, thank you for your comments tonight. I wrestled with all this when we approved the CIP. I wrestled when we issued the bonds. I liked the adaptability of the facility. We will leave that facility with E911 in 10 years, maybe 12 years, I don't know. But we will leave that. And at that time, it will have an adaptability for the judges. If the judge says he wants a new courtroom, guess what we do? We build it. We have no choice. This has the ability to adapt and change into a courtroom in the future. That's what I liked about the project. I'm not happy about the overruns or the miscues, you can call them what you want. It works both ways sometimes. The water tower is $775,000 less than we had a placeholder for. I would hope that we're gonna hold the contractor very tight and we don't spend any of the contingency. I hope the architects have done their job. If they've done enough of the study, then possibly we won't have the overruns we might think we might have, or contingency needs. So I supported this before, I support it now. I spoke with the sheriff. I applaud the sheriff for being the individual he is and saying possibly, he thinks he could get away with, maybe not doing this right now or later on. But we do have an investment in equipment, it's adaptability, and it's visionary. I sat on the planning commission for 16 years. I heard government projects, $80 million for a building. I heard $11 million for a building. Our past county administrator did a great job of readapting the county administration building, pulling some departments out of other places we were renting and putting them back into the courthouse to keep and meet the citizens' needs for the future. That kept us from doing an $80 million building that was in the CIP. The $11 million placeholder we have for this building. So I think this is a good project. I wish I'd seen the pictures earlier. I trusted that the architects were gonna make sure that it fit, because that was one of my biggest concerns, was that it fit the courthouse. Cold feet sometimes. I just bought a new truck. Needed to buy a new truck, unfortunately. My car died. But I bought me a truck, and I was all excited about my truck till I left there, and then I pulled over there and I had buyer's remorse, a little bit. But unfortunately, it is mine. So, I'm not gonna get cold feet here. It was the right decision months ago, and it's the right decision now. I'm in support of keeping it in the project. Angie, any other comments?
I'll just add, I agree with parts of everything everybody up here has said. To me, it comes down to two things that I've heard from people that I respect a great deal. One is that there is absolutely no acceptable level of interaction between the public and dispatchers, and we have that now, and that cannot continue. We have an obligation to them and to their safety. And I think, in my opinion, I think Mr. Green probably knows more about this than anybody in this room, and has for many years. And he says that there's a critical need. I believe him.
All right, we'll, any other comments?
I reiterate,
Yep.
nobody's arguing the need.
Oh, I know you're not, Carson.
Mr. Chairman, I have just one. I
Yep.
piggyback on what Angie just said in a positive way. I think it's good to have these kind of discussions, because I think this is a perfect reflection of our community. I know there are people concerned with the cost overrun. There's no question about that. And I know there are people who would like to explore other options. And I'm sure there are people who think, okay, enough, we've hammered this out. And actually, I think we just reflected probably our entire community just about in that discussion. And I'll just kick in there, Carson, I took careful notes. I actually agree with everything you said, but after looking at this over the last week or so pretty carefully and having my questions answered tonight, I originally was not in favor of this entire project. I have changed my mind for one simple reason. I believe we're out of time. And time is money, literally, here. So I agree. I would love to explore other options and come up with something even better, standalone facility, whatever. But I just think we're now in a corner, and I can't see a way out of that economically. So taxpayer money, got to shepherd that. So thank you.
Thank you, Larry. I'm going to move that we approve Resolution R 2017-50, authorizing county administrator to execute a contract with the lowest responsible offer to IFP 2017-05. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it, Mr. Chairman.
Have a motion and a second. Mr. Williams seconded it, and Ms. Cabell seconded it, but you can take either one.
Thirded it.
Okay. Take that, Mr. Williams.
Ladies get the benefit.
All, you got to do roll call vote, then? We have a motion and a second?
We do.
Okay.
Mr. Williams,
Aye.
Mr. Nordvig,
Aye.
Mrs. Cabell,
Aye.
Mr. Melton,
Aye.
Mr. Tucker.
Nay.
Motion passes 4-1. Thank you. We'll now move on to Resolution R 2017-30, adopting the county's FYI 2018 capital improvement plan and other capital programs. I'll make a motion, we approve that. We had dialogue on that earlier. I make that motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Tucker?
And the roll call vote, Mr. Williams,
Aye.
Mr. Nordvig,
Aye.
Mrs. Cabell,
Aye.
Mr. Melton,
Aye.
Mr. Tucker.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. We'll now move on to our first public hearing. R 2017-43, a resolution amending the FY 2018 Powhatan County operating budget by budgeting and appropriating $3.4 million for the 5-year capital improvement plan and other capital improvement program. Found on page 121 of the packet. Charla?
Yes, sir. The Resolution R 2017-43 is amending the fiscal year 18 operating budget, appropriating $3,436,000 for our 5-year capital improvement plan and other capital improvement. A public hearing is required because it is more than 1% of the original budget. It was advertised in the Powhatan Today on June 14th.
Any questions of staff? Thank you, Charla. I'll open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on this resolution, please come forward at this time.
Good evening, Jim Carver. I live at 4245 Stecker Creek Drive. I didn't plan to speak tonight, but I wrote a few notes on this topic, and so if I look ill-prepared, I apologize. First, I want to thank the entire board that was good, robust discussion. I agree with you. That was a good discussion. I live in Mr. Carson Tucker's district, and I appreciate your comments a lot. I really appreciate your diligence on that. I also was kind of torn as I looked over this last few days. You reach a point where you've got the sunk cost, you're meeting the spirit of what you wanted to accomplish, and it's a difficult decision. I face that at work every day. You know, how far along do we go? And I work on a program that is millions over budget, and I didn't put it that way, but it is what it is. You either, I also am not arguing the need at all. I think that's well said. It's a need we all agree we need. What I would relay is a few comments. Number one, on your capital improvement plan, I know you just voted for that. I think it's important to remember a capital improvement plan is not a capital improvement for X amount of dollars. It's a capital improvement that consists of multiple items, each having a dollar value. So you have to be cautious to say, well, our ceiling, our capital improvement plan is $50 million. So if we need to shave some there and put some there, it's okay, but you got to be cautious when you do that because you lose sight. Plus, you've also talked to the public already about each item and each value. So it's important to remember that. The other thing, a couple other things I'd comment on is what are we going to learn as a county from this instance? You know, what are we going to avoid doing next time? Are we going to do a better requirements analysis. I appreciate the judges. I get it. They want this, you're going to give it to them. But when did we ask them to sign a document, or when did we get them to nod their head saying, this is the requirement, we're going to give you, yes or no? When did they get the chance to say, the great idea cutoff was 6 months ago? It's just requirements discipline. It's important to do that. I think the final thing I'll leave you with is, if I remember the new Virginia proffers law, I think, and as I hear a lot of great information from Tom and Ramona, as the county adds citizens, our 911 requirements go up, dispatch requirements go up, right? Those are attributable to the growth of the county. I think proffers pay for that. Isn't that what the proffers are for? If I add 50 kids to a school district, or 100 kids to a school district, and that equals 2 buses, I think that's what proffers are for. So I would just remind you, I think over the last year, we've forfeited a lot of proffer money that might have helped cover some of this. So thanks for your time.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to speak, please come forward at this time. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing on R 2017-43. I'll make a motion, we approve Resolution R 2017-43, amending the FY18 Powhatan operating budget, budgeting appropriating $3,436,000.
Second.
Motion and a second.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Mr. Nordvig.
Aye.
Mrs. Cabell.
Aye.
Mr. Melton.
Aye.
Mr. Tucker.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. We'll now move on to item 12B, ordinance 2017-19, amending and reenacting Chapter 80, Water and Wastewater of the Code of Powhatan County for the purpose of updating information and to clarify policies and procedures found on page 125 of the packet. Ramona?
Good evening again. The last time I presented the changes to this ordinance was in a workshop in August of last year. And we didn't go to a public hearing with it because we selected a couple sections out of it that we wanted to change. One of them was the strong waste. So we changed a couple little things in here, but we didn't go through and make all of the changes in the ordinance. And unfortunately, I have to go through each section, and there's 33 slides. So I'm going to go through quickly. I'm going to try to go through quickly. If you have questions, please stop me on that slide because it'll be hard to go back again to the, because there's it's very diverse topics through here. So the first section that we changed was the definitions. This was just cleaning up some of them, taking out some circular references where we said this definition is per the zoning ordinance, or we just took that out and actually put the definition in there. And then we matched some EPA definitions so that our definition matched with theirs. So section 80-6, trespass on property under control of the county. This was talking about an impoundment. We don't have any impoundments, and we don't have any plans for impoundments. So we just removed that reference. Section 80-8, prevention of water shortages and wastewater system overloads. This section, it was a very long section that we took out of here, and it had the whole drought management plan in here. Instead, we just referenced the water resource plan and the drought management. There was some clarification that we needed to make on who calls for when a conservation needs to be implemented. In the past, I would notify the county administrator, and the county administrator could issue a conservation, a drought management plan. Now it actually has to go to the board to issue that declaration of a water shortage. 8024 through 8029, this was for applications to connect to the public utilities. I worked with Brett on this one to change so that, because how it was, applications were done in the past is sometimes for utilities, they would issue it to submit the application to Public Works, and sometimes it would be to Community Development. So we just funneled everything through Community Development so that there was one point of contact, and then Brett or whoever his contact is, would issue it out to Public Utilities and any other health department or whoever else needed to be notified. 80-31 acceptance. We added in utility agreements. This provides us a warranty on the workmanship when, like, a developer is putting in infrastructure. It's secured with a bond so that we can make sure that it's put into our standards, and that I believe it's for 1 year. There's a 1-year warranty on the workmanship, so that if something happens to the infrastructure in that 1-year time, they have to come back and correct it. So it's just protection for us. 80-33, work in public easements. We just wanted to add in here that we actually had the authority to stop a contractor from working if there was an unsafe condition. If we walked up and there was a worker in a trench, we could actually have the authority to say, you're on county property and you need to, stop work because it's unsafe. And we also wanted to have written permission from Public Works Department for people working on county property in a utility easement. This gave us the control so that we didn't have some property owner's cousin who was a plumber working on our utility infrastructure. 80-54, separate connections are required. This is just a clarification that when there is more than one building facility on a property, that they require separate connections. They can't have one connection and then serve both the facilities, buildings. Because we did have some issues where people subdivided a property and it had one service that was feeding both the buildings. 80-58, damage to water meters. We just put in a more general definition. It was very specific about hot water and the types of boilers and things like that would cause backups. We just added in something more general to cover so it wasn't so specific. 80-61, reading water meters. We changed the estimating from 4 months to 2 months. We don't normally estimate. We read all our meters every other month, bi-monthly. So. And we added that circumstances outside of the direct control of Powhatan County officials to cover situations where the meter is inaccessible. We had a situation where it was a concrete plant and they had concrete over the meter. We couldn't read the meter and we couldn't get them to fix it. So we kind of added that in there so that 80-67, water meters for outside use. This is irrigation meters. Our irrigation meters are separate meters. We don't allow irrigation meters to be installed off the water meter like Chesterfield. That is how it was worded before, so we just changed that. And it avoids us having to deduct the irrigation meter off the sewer bill. 80-69, facility charge in effect. We changed the facility charge to be in effect the day the customer pays instead of when they apply for service. Because a significant amount of time can pass in there and the rates could go up. And if they pay when they apply, they've got the lower rate then, and they wouldn't be subject to the increases. 80-70, transferring of connections, just clarifying that the water and sewer connections stay with the property. 80-72, utility charges. We removed the effective date because it was, it said a specific time, like 2014, I believe was the date. So we just took that out. And we left the whole, the body of and the wording in there. We just took out the effective date. And we clarified that customers who are not connected to public water or Aqua Virginia who have a well, but they are on sewer, that they get a bill of 5,000 gallons per month. It's just a set fee. 80-73, this is the one I think, the slide you guys will probably have the most questions on. This is the surcharges for excessive strength waste. So we added, and I think I brought this to you 2 months ago. We added in the copper and the zinc limits there was 4 parameters that you had to test for before in excessive waste. We added in the copper and zinc. Copper and zinc were in another section. They were for industrial users. But all of the other requirements for industrial users didn't apply to all of our customers. But the copper and zinc did because we have really strict limits at our plants. So we took the copper and zinc, although there's no fines associated with them, it does require that they mitigate and they have a mitigation plan if they exceed the limits.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
Ramona, refresh my memory. If the mitigation plan doesn't work and they never come into compliance, what happens?
They could be issued a pretreatment permit. So then a pretreatment permit would mean that any upgrades that they have to put in, if they have to put in special treatment ahead of time, that's all of their cost, and they have to, if they had to put in a special plant to take the copper out before it got to us, or take out some parameter.
And if they didn't do it, they wouldn't be connected to the system anymore?
Right.
That's the final result. That would be the,
Right.
okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
We also changed the limit on copper. Zinc limit stayed the same, but the copper limit was really, it was actually difficult to even measure. So we changed it to be more compatible with the surrounding localities, although it is plant-specific. So it's based on, the limit is based on how much your plant can remove. But we felt that our limits and the capabilities of our plant to remove it, we could meet the 0.1 milligrams per liter. Section 80-74, testing water meters. This is if a customer requests that we test their meter because they think that it's reading wrong. If we test it and we find that it is reading accurately, we will bill the costs for testing that meter to the customer. It just keeps from everybody calling up and saying, you know, if they have a high water bill, to say, oh, well, I want my meter tested, because then that's a high cost to us if we're having to do that for everybody. So section 8076, late utility charges. This was the change to Appendix A as well. We had a charge in there that we never enforced because with our billing, our third-party billers, we couldn't bill late fees. It didn't work with their software, but the late fees were $2 or 5% of the bill, which isn't enough motivation, and we still had the same 7 or 8 customers that continually missed their bill, had late bills, and would wait until the day before they got cut off to pay their bill. So we proposed to have a $30 charge for bills that are less than $500 and a $60 charge for bills that are greater than $500. That's just to distinguish the commercial from the residential, is where we got the $500 from. And we clarified that utility bill is considered paid when the county treasurer or Sidner receives the payments. When they're mailed, we don't necessarily get it, because we get the customers that say, well, I put it in the mail, but we never receive it. So it's paid when we receive the bill. 80-77, termination of service for non-payment. This was a legislation, there was a House bill that went through where they were trying to get this changed, the time limit for cutting people off, but it didn't actually make it all the way through, so it's still 60 days. You cannot cut off you can't cut off their water service until they're 60 days past due. So that was just the clarification in that section. 80-78, charges for utility service. We added collection of unpaid charges. We added collections will be any means authorized by law, and this was recommended by Tom. He reviewed this as well, and because there was some wording in there about liens against property and the landlords and tenants, and it was just very confusing, so on Tom's recommendation, this was the best way to handle it. 80-79, charge for opening and reinstating accounts. We clarified that the administration fee as per Appendix A must be paid when applying for utility service instead of charging it on your first bill. So people have to bring in a check rather than us putting it on their bill. 80-98 and 80-106. This is just a clarification. It was the oversizing credit policy. They were both named the same thing, so it was difficult to tell which one was which. One was for water and one was for sewer, so we just changed the titles to clarify which was which. 80-112, required use of the utility system. We added the requirement for residential to connect if their well and septic tank is failing and the utility infrastructure is located along their property.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
Ramona, we talked about this, I think, briefly in workshop one evening. If I understand, if I'm in the RC district along Route 16, I'm in a residential home, and I'm a senior citizen, which I am. I don't live on Route 60, though. But what you're saying with this ordinance, this proposed ordinance, if my well starts failing, does that mean that I have to connect? I would be required. I wouldn't have an option. I'd be required to connect to public water?
Yes, if your well was failing, because in reality, it would be cheaper to connect to the water than it would be to put another well in.
Okay. Can you give me some numbers, roughly what each one would be? Because
I can get that for you. I don't have it right now, but I can get that for you. What the
But you-
cost of
You
the
have
new.
certitude that it would indeed be cheaper to connect to the county water than it would be to do a new well. You have absolute certitude that, because what I don't want to do, I remember John Watkins was at that workshop, and I remember him saying, you need to be careful with this one.
Okay, I can get those numbers.
Okay.
I can do a comparison.
And then my second question is it also cheaper, if my septic tank is failing, is it also cheaper to connect to public sewer than it is to put in a new septic system?
That depends on, well, if it's gravity that's available to you, it would be cheaper. But if you have to put a pump station in to get it to the sewer, then it's not adjacent to your property. So you wouldn't have to connect. It's only for those ones that are where the water main runs along one side of their property. So if you had a lot along 60 and then somebody behind there had a failing well or septic system, they wouldn't be required because it doesn't front their property.
But if I'm in that first 500 feet and the water and sewer does come through my property within the first 500 feet in an RC district, and I'm a residential unit, and either one of those two fail, according to this ordinance, I would be required to hook up to public water and/or sewer.
Correct. If it ran along one side of your property. Not if it was 500 feet or 300 feet away, if it
Run
actually
along one
fronted.
side. I'm talking about if it just runs, along Route 60, like.
If it doesn't front your property, if it doesn't run along one side of your property, then you don't have to connect, according to
So
this.
it would have to be coming back in to, where the, line's running parallel with 60, and then some places, like down at Oak Ridge, it comes back into the development. So are you saying in those instances where it takes that 90-degree and goes back into development, if my property line is contiguous to where it does that 90-degree,
Right,
then I would be required then?
yes.
Do I know, or do we have an idea about how many potential homes would be affected that are in that type of situation today?
I don't.
Because it's going to affect primarily Larry Norvik's district, my district, and Angie answered my question. She's unaffected. So I'd like to have some idea about how many people that would potentially be affected by this. Ted, have you had any experience with this?
Mr. Williams, yeah, I've certainly been in communities with mandatory connection requirements, and it's very location-specific as to how complex it is to deal with it. In my most recent community, we have a situation where we have many, many hundreds of failing septic tanks, a lot of unsuitable soil, small lots, and we have, put in place a mandatory connection program to resolve that. As you can imagine, there are a number of homeowners who say they can't afford to pay, so we've got some payment plans available, some of it community development block grant type sources for that. There's an income qualification. So there are some types of options we might have for a homeowner who may have difficulty paying that we could look at. But ultimately, this is a balancing act between the needs of the utility, the desire to have compliance with health department requirements, and certainly the financial needs of the homeowner.
Okay, well, I think you answered my question, Ted, because what I would like to see before adopting this particular part of the ordinance, I would like to see, something that accompanies the adoption of this particular part of the ordinance where it does exactly what you were talking about, Ted, that we have some plan in place for senior citizens, for people that, of certain incomes, where the county would offer some relief in terms of how it would get paid for. Because I really have a hard time requiring somebody to hook up that's maybe a senior citizen that doesn't have the money to do it. And if we had something in place where we said, okay, we understand that, but the county is adopted. If you have a certain income, or if you're retired, or, something in place where we could help them in meeting that requirement in the ordinance, I'd feel a lot better about it.
We do have a payment plan in
Let's
place.
finish 8113 through the rest, hold a public hearing, and then go from there. We possibly may want to pull this out, pass it.
That's good.
If that's the only concern, pass it, and then go back and amend this once we get more data. But let's let
I agree.
Ramona go through the rest. I think that's a good idea.
I do want to clarify that we do have a payment plan for connections already in place. The board has voted on that in the past.
We did, I thought.
And we do use it. We have used it a few times.
I'll wait, let's go through it.
Yep.
All right, 80-113, exceptions to the use of the utility system. There was an exception before where you could convert a residential property to a commercial, industrial use, and you didn't have to connect. We changed that it's the same kind of thing. We didn't want somebody to come in and take a house and convert it to a restaurant and not have to pay where everybody else had to pay. I'll leave it. 11-115, infiltration into the water system. We just clarified the definition of infiltration. I'm way behind. 80-116, substances that shall not be deposited into the wastewater system. We just added, again, on Tom's recommendation, the county attorney, that violations shall be punished to the full extent of the law. 80-117, restricted wastes. We changed the limit of, this is for industrial, this was the industrial users, which we don't have any currently. We just changed limits of copper and mercury to more reasonable limits. The mercury limit, we couldn't even measure the one that they had in, so we changed that. We matched some of the surrounding localities. Chesterfield, actually Chesterfield's copper limit is significantly higher than ours. And then, and we looked at Aqua Virginia's water too, what they tested at, just to make sure that our limits weren't unreasonable. 80-118 sewer cleanouts. We added that the property owner, it must be installed at the property line. We removed the exception for properties with monitoring manholes. This would be the commercial accounts that have to abide by the strong waste, because some of them, their monitoring manhole is right after their grease interceptor. So if we don't have the sewer cleanout at the property line, we're responsible from the sewer all the way to the monitoring manhole. So if we put it at the property line, the property owner is still responsible for that section. 80-119 and 80-120, we just added into the definitions that schools and daycares and any establishments with non-residential kitchens, we just added to the list. 80-122, testing of effluent. We revised the testing schedule because we're changing our billing software, and we're shifting it by a month. We needed to shift all of those dates that the sampling was supposed to be taken. And we removed the averaging of the bills because it's just too difficult to monitor and to track that. We changed restricted wastes to copper and zinc, that was in industrial accounts, and I already said that we had taken that out and put it into the strong waste. 80-155 and 80-156. We just clarified that those were for industrial accounts only. 80-163, measures to prevent backflow and back siphoning. We added all irrigation systems are subject to the requirements of this section. We added swimming pools, hose bibs, water softeners, and other devices that are determined to be a risk for backflow. And this just matches with Chesterfield.
What's a hose bed, sorry?
Like on the outside of your house, the little, that's what we call it.
I'm sorry?
Like where you connect your garden hose on the outside of your house.
That's called a bib?
Yep.
Huh. Thanks.
80-166 and 80-167, again, industrial use only. 80-160, oh, I'm going backwards. 80-165, the responsibility of the county and the owner. We clarified that the property owner is responsible for annual testing of the backflow device and providing the test results to the county. This just matches Chesterfield. They do the same thing as well. And that was all.
That's it.
So I'm prepared to answer any questions or
Any questions,
discussion
Sam?
on.
Wouldn't there,
There's a lot of
Okay.
information, I'm sorry.
That had to be the most exciting presentation you've ever given, Ramona.
I'm sorry, I
uh,
apologize.
No questions of staff. Now I'm going to open the public hearing on ordinance 2017-19. Anybody would like to speak about grease traps or any of those type of things, please come forward at this time. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. I have a recommendation. Staff's worked on this for a while, we've had it in workshops, that we approve ordinance 2017 excluding section 80-112, and that we get some more information on that and deal with it at a later time. Maybe we'll get it in a workshop, then we can have some dialogue. If we're doing that, can I ask a couple other things to be added to the workshop, just that tie into the fees, the structure of the county?
can we act on your motion first?
Yeah, we can.
I second your motion.
Thank you. Okay, any questions on the motion? All in favor of the motion as presented? Oh, excuse me. Got to do roll call.
Yes.
Aye.
Mr. Williams? Mr. Nordvig?
Aye.
Mrs. Cabell?
Aye.
Mr. Melton?
Aye.
Mr. Tucker?
Aye.
Motion passes. So when you bring 80-12, building inspections has a septic and well verification of $100. I thought we asked for that to be removed because we don't do anything with septic and well anymore. It's all done through the health department. I think, is it met, Brett?
Yeah, I believe previously it was $185. So we looked at what we do. We do coordinate with the health department on verifying that well and septic systems are appropriate. So we had that fee in there just for the interface with them. As staff,
Kind of like double
we
dipping in
also-
my eyes. But we can put it on a workshop and have a discussion on it.
sure,
How
we'd be
about
happy
that?
to talk about it.
The last thing, Mr. Norvig has asked me this before, and I forgot about this. It'd be 38-67A, false alarm fees. So if we can have that in a workshop, Mr. Norvig would like to discuss false alarm fees in a workshop.
Appreciate that.
Okay?
Mr. Chairman, if I can briefly, address to staff what I'm looking for, with the exemption that we're proposing tonight. Brett, what I'm going to be looking at is, what is, like Ramona said, what is the payment plan, or I can look that up if we've already got it. But if it is indeed, what is the cost of, putting in the new well versus the hookup? What is the cost of hooking up to sewer versus fixing, the septic tank? How many people, residents, are potentially affected by this ordinance. And that should be easy to do with the GIS, with the water sewer system going through the different parcels. So that's the kind of information I'm looking for. How many are going to be affected and what's the potential cost?
Great question. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We'll now move on to public hearing 12C, Resolution 2017-47, County of Powhatan, the Virginia Department of Transportation, 6-year secondary plan. Welcome. Thanks for sitting out there so long.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Kevin Reichert. I'm the resident engineer for the Chesterfield residency with the Virginia Department of Transportation. I'm here this evening to present for public comment and for your consideration the secondary 6-year improvement plan for FY18 through FY23, as well as the construction budget for FY18. The Code of Virginia allows localities in cooperation with VDOT the opportunity to prepare a plan for improvements for the secondary road system in anticipation of the funding that will be available within the 6-year improvement plan, and then also to allocate funds within the current fiscal year for construction improvements. I'll briefly go through the money that is available in the 6-year plan, as well as the projects that are currently in the plan, and then I can answer any questions that the board may have. Within the 6-year plan, it's a combination of unpaved road money as well as telefee money. The telefee money that's available currently within each year of the plan is approximately $97,000. And then the unpaved road money fluctuates a little bit, but it's approximately $5,000 per year that's available to Powhatan County. Projects that are included, and these are in priority order of the county, Carter Gallery Boulevard project, which is funded and has been advertised for construction. Bids were received last week on this project, and so we're in the process now of evaluating those bids. Next project is the...
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, would you like questions after the whole thing? Or
You can ask them now if you like, that's fine.
Okay.
If you have questions on that project.
Yeah, I just want to hit the pause button on the
Sure.
Carter Gallier. I'm on the Richmond Regional Planning District Commission and also the Transportation Planning Organization, and we got this information. I've actually received a couple citizen complaints. If
Okay.
you can address it, it'd be great. If we need to talk about it later, fine.
Sure.
They're concerned about the traffic flow, what it'll do to Old Church Road that intersects there, and people flying through there, using it as a shortcut, et cetera, et cetera. Can you address what kind of study is done so that the public can hear that we do look at things like traffic flow and traffic safety and sight distances, et cetera, before we just go build a road?
Sure. I mean, so questions as far as sight distance or the safety of the road, all that's taken into consideration when we design the road. So there are design standards based on the speed that we anticipate for the road. And so those sight distance, particularly at intersections, are evaluated. We do look at traffic projections when we plan for the road to make sure that the facility that we're designing and building can accommodate current traffic data as well as future projections on that road. So that certainly is taken into account.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
Mr. Norver's question, addressed Old Church Road. This particular project does not connect to Old Church Road. This project, starts from down there, where the state police is,
Okay.
and arcs over to Page Road, crosses Page Road, and then goes into Luckstone's entrance. So I want to just, make that minor correction.
And the reason I bring it up is there's a projected extension, and it's a yellow line on a map they gave us a couple months ago downtown, and it eventually goes over toward
It
Old
does,
Church
it does.
Road.
So
It
this
does
is the
eventually.
projected extension behind
Behind the
Walmart?
South Creek. and it
Okay.
Yeah,
goes
behind the Walmart,
Okay.
et cetera.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the public has seen that map.
Sure.
So
Yes.
I got a few phone calls, and I
Okay.
said, why don't you call Mr. Williams? It's his district, but
They have. We've had this discussion back when we actually adopted the project. There was one individual who has been very vocal in opposition to the project. But Mr. Tucker and the chairman will tell you that we have fought to have parallel roads in this county. The beauty of that road is the fact that if you're coming from Lake Shawnee, or if you're coming from any place west of the intersection there, or excuse me, north of the intersection from that part of the county on Jeeves Ferry Road, you don't have to get on 60, and you would be able to take Old Church Road into South Creek. If you didn't want to go to South Creek, you could keep going. You could go into Walmart, into the commercial development that's coming into play now, and never touch Route 60. And that's been our goal for some time, because we knew we didn't want to keep putting traffic in and off of Route 60 for access management reasons. So the project makes a lot of sense. And I'm tickled that it's fully funded, Kevin.
Yes, sir. So
So thank you all for what y'all are doing.
yes, sir. The next project in the plan is the Route 711 widening project, which is currently under construction now, and is moving forward, and we're making good progress on that project. The next project is Huguenot Trail intersection improvement at Huguenot Springs, which I am pleased to report that that project is going to be fully funded in the 6-year plan as well. So that one was submitted as a smart scale project, did score favorably, and was recommended for funding at the Commonwealth Transportation Board meeting, this previous meeting. So I don't know all the details yet on the years exactly of when the funding will show up, but it will be within the 6-year plan.
Now, the next opportunity we'll have with Smart Scale will be, what, in 2 years?
Correct.
Correct, yes, so they're going on a 2-year cycle moving forward. They did each year for the first 2 years.
So Kevin, what I want to do is I want you to have a conversation with this board, because once we do the updating of the comprehensive plan, it looks like that's going to be in September along that lines, we're going to be looking at the widening of 711 going from 288 out to Manikin Town Ferry Road that was recommended in the 2006 Route 711 corridor study that y'all did for us. So with that in mind, whatever you do down there with, putting in the T and taking out the Y, I want you to be planning for that eventuality, that we're going to be looking at 4 lanes, not the existing 2, and the alignment, such that, you can do the engineering, preparing for that, and save some money.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And as we move forward with the smart scale process, although it is 2 years out, it's an ongoing process. So I'll certainly be back to work with the board and staff on projects moving forward in smart scale.
Thanks.
Yes, sir. Next project in the plan is Cool Lane, which is paving of an unpaved road. We are putting the unpaved road money that's available to the county on Cool Lane, but that project is not fully funded at this time.
So it's basically you put $6,800 towards the project? Good. Because it's not something, while it's on a 6-year, it's one of the few roads that's unpaved, I guess is what I'm putting. And we can't use unpaved road funds for anything else in the county.
We were able to use some previous unpaved formula funds for other projects within the county, but I'm
Like
not
if we had a
sure.
turn lane extension that we needed, we couldn't use those on unpaved? Because we have very few unpaved roads left.
To my knowledge, Cool Lane is the only one that would qualify for
Right.
unpaved road money, because there is a traffic volume, a minimum traffic volume requirement.
Okay.
So I can check into what the flexibility is with that money, but I'm not sure.
Okay. Well,
offhand.
Cool Lane one day may get done, but by whomever.
Okay.
We'll leave it as a placeholder.
Okay. And then the remaining projects or placeholders that are listed in the plan are basically just that, placeholders for future money that is currently not allocated to a project, and that's future telefee money that is available to the county, and that's approximately the $97,000 per year.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
Mr. Williams, on priority number 3, which is the Huguenot Trail, remind me what 607 and 721 are.
Huguenot Springs.
If you're coming down, or excuse me, let's do it. If you're coming from 288,
Yeah,
you know where Dr. Blair came in.
Yeah.
All right, that's one of them.
that's 607. Or it doesn't matter, go ahead.
Yeah. And then, remember, if you go past, you don't turn there, for example, you just
Right.
kept going. Remember where the old schoolhouse is?
Yeah.
That's the other one.
Okay, so they're
And-
both
and-
Huguenot Springs Road.
You are, right.
Gotcha.
right.
Essentially one,
Remember
like-
where the V's, you remember it comes down to, remember
Yeah.
we had the rezoning for the Confederate Cemetery?
Mm-hmm.
What was his name? But anyway, that's the
It's
configuration.
fixing that
I'm
whole
with you.
intersection.
Thank you.
So Kevin, we had some project we called unfunded projects, a list that had been done by the previous board and some of this board. I had the intersection at Route 13 and 609 is something that I definitely think we need to continue to focus on. These last projects that are unfunded, or you're saying $200,000 of telefees, can we apply those to a project so that we could be looking at? Because 609 and 13 continues to be one of the high accident points in the entire county.
You could choose to add an additional project to the plan. I mean, similar to what was done at Huguenot Springs, where you allocate the money, the telefee money that is available to the county, and then maybe look at options through Smart Scale of leveraging some of that money, apply it through Smart Scale, and see if you could get the project fully funded in that manner. That certainly is an option.
Let me ask a point of clarification. Smart Scale, does it have to be the project in the MPO boundary area?
It's probably at mine is anyway. I think you're right.
It needs to meet one of the needs as spelled out for Smart Scale.
Well, don't we use, I think it's what, 5 criteria?
We do. There's 5 criteria that's looked at that's
Public
evaluated.
safety is one, the first one.
Safety is a good one to look at for
That's
a
not
Smart
the
Scale
question you're
project.
asking.
No,
So
the
David's
question I'm
question is-
asking is about the eligibility for Smart Scale funding if the location that Billy talked about is outside the MPO boundary.
I've asked that question before, if you don't mind. It's possible, but they said you have the added risk, you have to watch out for your rural funding, that it would affect what is not. It's a different pot of money. So what's not inside the regional area, you might be affecting your funding
The
there.
reason
So-
I'm bringing this up, because Mr. Tucker was there at the TPO when I was trying to get the MPO boundary eliminated, that the boundaries would be the boundary of the
County.
PDC. Because we wanted to be able to have the intersection there for the new state park be considered for funding.
Yes, sir.
And it couldn't even be considered because it was outside the MPO boundary, yet that was a regional gem, in my mind, a real regional project that should have been considered, but couldn't be because of this magic line that runs through the middle of the county.
Okay.
So if you
So
could
the
check
que-
on that for
Ye-
us.
yes,
and
sir.
And
We
get
can
back
certainly
with
look
the
at that.
chairman.
So if we want to add a project, is tonight the night we need to do that, or do we can do that at a later date? I mean, this is a 6-year secondary plan. I know I've talked about 609 and 13 for now 6 years.
I believe if you want to add a project and add the funding to it, we would need to come back to another board meeting in order to do that.
Okay.
A question, just
Yes,
a
sir.
quick question. If we take, this is money that's not on any other project right now? I mean, the money that, that the chairman wants to put on 609 at that intersection, where is that money today?
It's currently in a cost center that's a placeholder, so it is not on a specific project currently.
And I would, all right, so my question is, for projects that are already on the books and prioritized, why wouldn't the money go to any of the projects in the hierarchy that we have right now? Why wouldn't it be put on, for example, if the first three projects are already fully funded?
Yes, sir.
Why wouldn't it go to the number 4 and help complete that project?
If you were to add a new project tonight, is that?
Yeah, does that
Okay.
take away from our ability to put that money on projects that we already have money on today?
Sure.
But are not fully funded? Wouldn't that delay the completion of projects that are only partially funded under the 6-year plan today.
You mean speed up.
The way I read this is everything's fully, so he just told us Carter Gallery is now fully funded, correct? Although the
Right.
spreadsheet says 326,000 balance to complete. You're now telling us we've got full funding.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
It's fully funded.
So then Huguenot Trail widening is actually a dollar over budget. And then Huguenot Trail intersection improvement at 607 and 721 is fully funded.
Yep.
Cool Lane
Yep.
expansion is not fully funded. It's $117,000 short if we choose to, if we wanted to fund it. The next project is, he's saying Route 888, which is basically various locations, future roads. He's got a placeholder of 200,000. It's underfunded by $294,000. He's using our telefees of $97,000 to apply to these projects. Is that correct?
That's correct. You currently, except for Cool Lane, do not have a specific road project in the plan that is not fully funded.
Okay.
So I think to answer your question, my recommendation would be, if the board chooses to add an additional project this evening, to do that as part of your resolution.
Perfect.
And then I can work with staff to confirm if we can then take the money that is currently in one of those placeholders and allocate that to which would essentially be your next priority project within the plan.
What we did before, Kevin, is we looked at all the different, in fact, you probably still got it. Can we go back to that sheet where we did the tabulation of where we were having the most problems?
Right.
And where we said, these are where we need to prioritize. You remember that, Mr. Tucker?
Yeah.
Billy, do you remember that?
I do. And
All right, does that, on that, if you remember from that list, can you recall that 609 was the?
609 and 13 was one of the most challenging intersections.
Was
It's that
was
major
it the
thoroughfare
number
from the-
one? I mean, what I don't want
I
to
think-
do is
I
go
think-
from memory, and maybe if there's one that's more urgent,
I thought that actually, if I remember correctly, the turn lane going into the sheets from the west was the one, and they were able to do that with some funds that they tapped from somewhere else. But that was the most highest accident hit data, was that turn lane left into sheets.
right.
That was addressed with the lengthening of the turn lane. So I remember, there were a couple projects that Mr. Norvik's predecessor was always talking about, the bridge over Genito Road into Amelia. Of course, I understand that bridge is theirs, and maybe that's something they can work on. But that was one of the
that's
things.
Amelia.
Yeah, that was because they used a cut through to go down Clayville Road because
Yep.
of the weight restriction on the bridge. But 60913 was way up there, in its needing it because of the amount of traffic it carries from Amelia through to Powhatan and then into the prisons and things like that, so.
Like I say, if y'all are comfortable that, if your memory is, better than David Williams, which I'm sure it is, if you're saying that this was next in the pecking order, to be funded, I'll go with you. But having said that, if you're not maybe comfortable and you want to take, a meeting to look at the list again to make sure, I'm comfortable with that as well.
Kevin, I have a question of you. So
Yes,
I know
sir.
we did this one time before with your predecessor. We actually took it and pushed it back one meeting. You have a deadline you have to have. We sure don't want to miss any deadline with VDOT, because then your money just dry up or, get poof in the sky. Are we to a deadline here, or could we handle another month where we get a little more data? Not that I'm pretty sure in my recollection, but I would not want to misquote anything.
We have some flexibility. If you would like to push it another month, we can certainly come back and do that. I mean,
So what we would like is, again, there was a list, Brad, I don't know if March has this, we called it, for lack of better words, it was projects that were important to us as a board that were unfunded because there were no funds, but, as we've gotten these 3 projects funded, then to me, we should be bringing other projects to apply funds to.
Yep.
And get them in the noticed. I know some preliminary work, a little bit of work, excuse me, have been done at 609 and 13.
It should be in the 6-year plan that's in Ted's office, that master list that David was referring to.
I have a
We
copy
working
somewhere
with- You do?
in my pile of stuff in my garage my wife
Let's
can
ask
get rid
Ted
of.
to look for it first.
So between, somebody will come up with this.
Okay.
And so,
And I think I have I'm sure I can find a copy of that list
Okay.
as well.
okay. So if we cut you off, please continue.
The only other thing I would add, a project that's not included in the plan just because of the funding behind it is the Powhatan State Park project, which has been advertised and awarded, and it is scheduled to start construction the second week of July. So that project is moving forward as well.
But that's not part of our 6-year plan because, A, wasn't an MPO. To David's point.
And what's the estimated time of completion?
This fall.
That quick?
Yes, sir.
Fantastic.
That's
You want to
great.
bet on it?
I hope it'll be done this fall.
So,
May I ask
so,
a couple of questions?
Yes, go right ahead.
If we're finished with the 6-year plan discussion. Are we?
well, we actually have a public hearing scheduled for this. So we can defer, or we can have the public hearing now and just. I
Since
would-
you've advertised it, I'd hold it.
Okay, we can do that. Okay. You want to do the public hearing first, or you want comments now? Doesn't matter.
If we're going to add another project to it, ought we not to give the public the opportunity to know which one it is and comment upon it,
Okay.
or not? I mean, because it's not going to be funded very much.
No.
It's going to be a placeholder of, what, $200,000, but, and we change these things every year anyway, so I'm okay with having it or not having it, doesn't matter to me. That didn't help you at all, did it? Let's have the public
I think we
hearing.
have the public hearing. I don't know if anybody's sitting there that
But I
wants to
still
speak
have
on
discuss a couple of questions for Kevin on other issues.
it. Okay, we'll call him up after the public hearing.
Okay.
Well, Mr.
Thank
Chairman, you could actually open a public hearing and then not close it and keep it open to the
That's
next.
what I'd like to do.
To the
Okay.
next meeting.
Okay, any other questions of staff? Okay, we'll open the public hearing on R 2017-47, Powhatan County 6-year secondary road plan. Anyone wishing to speak, please come forward at this time. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing.
you don't-
No, excuse me, I'm not going to close the public hearing. I'm going to continue the public hearing to our July meeting.
Without any further advertising required.
Right, no need to further advertise because we're just simply continuing this currently advertised hearing.
Make that as a motion. Motion.
Second.
Motion is second. Gonna do roll call?
Mr. Williams?
All right.
Mr. Nordvig?
Aye.
Mrs. Cabell?
Aye.
Mr. Melton?
Aye.
Mr. Tucker?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Mr. Chairman.
Now you may ask,
Can we give us a thumbnail update on Saleh Creek and Deep Creek projects, please?
Yes, sir. Both of those bridge replacement projects are in the development stages at this point. We are looking to have a community meeting, and we're looking at doing them together. We'll have one meeting to solicit input and also to provide information on the detour impacts for each project. So we're still currently working on kind of refining the time frame for the durations.
So-
But we will have that information available before we have a public meeting.
so for those of you in the public, that was Deep Creek, which would be Cartersville Road
At Bellmead.
at Bellmead.
Yes.
And Route 13 at Saleh Creek, which is right past the entrance to the Powhatan Wildlife Management Area. Those
That's
two
correct,
bridges.
yes, sir.
So will you make a particular note to yourself that I'd like to give courtesy to the Cumberland Board of Supervisors,
Yes, sir.
such that when we have a date nailed down and we have some specifications of how long the roads are gonna be closed, if they're closed, et cetera, that maybe you and I could go as a courtesy to the Board of Supervisors, if that's okay with you gentlemen, and share, because so much of the traffic comes out of Cumberland on both of those roads.
Yes, sir, we can certainly
Thank
do
you.
that. And I can work with my counterpart for Cumberland to arrange a time when we could go and meet
Thank you.
with them. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Tucker, for reminding us of that. Thank you, Kevin. Anything else? No?
Okay,
See you in a month.
thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
We'll now move on to item 12D, ordinance 2017-16, case, rezoning case 1701. Brett?
Yep. Good evening, board members. Brett Chardine, Director of Community Development. Case 17-01 REZC is a requested rezoning from A10 agricultural to VC Village Center. And the applicant is proposing to use the existing historic single-family dwelling on the property as a hotel, two-room hotel. And that is a by right use with the VC zoning. Staff has reviewed it, agencies and other departments, no concerns expressed with the application and the proposal. It's in accord with the comprehensive plan. The applicant's offering two proffered conditions. One, they would dedicate right-of-way along Route 13 at their property's frontage, and then also that they would connect to public utilities. The applicant held a neighborhood meeting that was attended by approximately 40 people, at which there were no concerns expressed. Similarly, staff has had a few phone calls about it, just general inquiry about it or even supporting it, but again, no concerns expressed by the public to this point. Planning Commission at their June meeting held a public hearing and unanimously recommended approval of the project as proposed. So staff would recommend the board accept that Planning Commission recommendation. Happy to answer any questions.
Questions, staff? Seeing none, we'll open the public hearing on rezoning case 1701. Anyone wishing to speak, please come forward. Excuse me, I apologize. The applicant, we usually would let you make a statement if you would like. And since you're sitting out there, you're more than welcome.
2 hours fastest time.
Yeah.
I won't take your time tonight. Thank you for your consideration, and I'm here for any questions.
Any questions of the applicant? No? Okay, well, open the public hearing on rezoning case 1701. Anyone wishing to speak, please come forward at this time. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Angie, would you? This is in my district, and I will make a recommendation. We approve this. Mr. Potter and his family done a wonderful job with the project. I've been by and seen it. It is an excellent addition to the courthouse. We hope it stays full and creates a lot of taxes for us. So thank you for your investment.
I heartily second that.
Roll call, Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Mr. Nordvig.
Aye.
Mrs. Cabell.
Aye.
Mr. Melton.
Aye.
Mr. Tucker.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Thank you for your investment. We'll now move on to rezoning case 2017-17, rezoning of blue and gray self-storage. Down on page 207.
Yep, so the existing blue and gray self-storage facility on Route 60 as it's near their capacity, so they would like now to expand to the rear of that. The rear of the property is zoned A10, so it would require rezoning. So instead of having some RC on the front, CC on the back, they're proposing to just rezone the entire thing to have a common unified zoning there. The current facility that was constructed in 2014 is a little over 51,000 square feet. Again, nearly fully occupied, so they're proposing to add an additional 8,800 square feet, again, to the rear of that property. It's in accord with the comprehensive plan, no concerns from other agencies or departments. The applicant held a neighborhood meeting. Again, no concerns expressed by the members of the public, and again, staff has not received any calls, letters, emails of concern with this project. The Planning Commission at their June meeting unanimously recommended approval. Staff recommends the same. And I'll just note, there's two items here. First, the rezoning, and then this use also requires a conditional use permit, which is the next item following this one.
Any questions of staff? Seeing none. Okay. Mr. Haslop, would you like to make a statement as the applicant? It's not necessary, sir. Thank you, sir. Okay, we'll open a public hearing on rezoning case 1702 REZC, blue grade storage. Anyone wishing to speak, please come forward at this time. Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing. Before we make a vote, I would like to say, Mr. Haslop, nice to meet you again. You built wonderful homes many years ago, and my mom and dad were one of your neighbors, so nice to meet you. All right, Larry, this is in your district. Would you like to make a recommendation?
I would like to make a motion that we accept Let's see, it's
Rezoning case.
2017-17.
Yep.
And rezoning case for blue and gray self-storage.
I'll second that motion.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Nordvig?
Aye.
Mrs. Cabell?
Aye.
Mr. Melton?
Aye.
Mr. Tucker?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Brett will now have Public Ordinance 2017-18, conditional use permit, Blue Grade Storage.
Yep, so with that action you just took, gave the underlying zoning necessary for this. Now they're just requesting the conditional use permit that's required for self-service storage facilities. Again, with this permit, just like the rezoning, no concerns. Staff's recommending approval. Planning Commission is as well. With this particular use, there's a couple standards in the zoning ordinance that address minimum spacing between buildings, hours of operation, location of outdoor storage for RVs or boats, parking and circulation and building appearance. The current development is in accord with all of those, and those would continue to apply to the future development. So those are standards that are in our zoning ordinance. Then particular to the CUP, staff would recommend a few conditions, 7 in total. The first 4 here, kind of the general ones that go with all of our CUPs. So I'll just point out the ones that are specific to this use. Number 5, each access point will be controlled by a gate, and members of the Sheriff's Office, Fire and Rescue, and Emergency Services will have access to those gate codes so they can get in at any time if needed. Buildings will be oriented perpendicular to the streets and have the garage doors facing internally, not outside to the streets. And then the exterior facades of the structures will have a uniform architectural treatment to match what's there already. Been over these conditions with the applicant. They expressed no concerns. So again, Planning Commission recommended approval, and staff echoes that recommendation.
So any questions of staff? I have one quick one. Just section 83-125 only is applicable if he does not do this. It does not pick up a building permit or does not do this within 2 years.
Correct.
Okay. Perfect. Any other questions of staff? Would the applicant like to say anything? He agrees. Okay, thank you. At this time, we'll hold a public hearing on ordinance 2017-18, case 1702 CUP for Blue Gray self-storage. Anyone wishing to speak, please come forward at this time. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Mr. Norvig?
Once again, District 2. I would like to put forward and recommend that we accept 2017-18 CUP, blue and gray self-storage.
I'll second that motion.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Nordvig?
Aye.
Mrs. Cabell?
Aye.
Mr. Melton?
Aye.
Mr. Tucker?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Thank y'all. We'll now move on to our last public hearing, O 2016-30 ordinance, amending and reenacting Chapter 46, Fire and Prevention and Protection, Article 2, the Fire Prevention Code. And who is, oh, Harry, thank you. Found on page 235 of your packet.
Good evening. When we first presented this back in November, I had added some verbiage to match, that said open burning for debris waste and clean burning waste. And what we're trying to do is become compliant with DEQ's open burn model ordinance. They felt that was less restrictive, so only thing we did was went in and removed debris waste and clean burning waste and put back what they had in the model ordinance, which specifically talked about destruction of leaves, yard trimmings, garden trimmings, and had a separate section for debris waste. And then we just added in our restrictions in the county, which were the size of piles and what needed to be on site, what required a permit. That was the only thing that was changed. And we presented it to them, they sent it back, we made the changes, and they requested a hard copy. That was sent to them, they approved it, and if it gets approved tonight, they want a copy of the signed ordinance.
Okay.
And that just makes us compliant with
We'll be glad
DEQ's
to
open
sign
burn.
Any questions of staff? I know we've met with this several times in some workshops, discussed it. And this just cleans it all up and got some more information from others. So, any questions of staff on the board and ordinance? Fire prevention? Okay. At this time, we'll open the public hearing on ordinance 2016-30. Anyone wishing to speak, please come forward at this time.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the Board of Supervisors. My name is Al Doss. I live at 1807 Hillenwood Drive in Powhatan. I'd like to thank you in advance for addressing this issue that we have in Powhatan County for open burning. I do support this memorandum to amend the zoning ordinance for burning. I'd like to call your attention to page 250, number 6. It says, burning shall be conducted only when wind will not carry ash to another person's dwelling, structure, or roadway. There is no definition for ash in the definitions, so there is a definition for smoke. So I'd like to see that changed, ash changed to smoke. Also in B, open burning, I would, after number 5, I would like to see added number 6 from A above in regards to carrying smoke to adjoining property. Page 251, section C, number 10, there again, it references ash, and I would like to see that revised to include the word smoke. I have no other comments for the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Doss.
Mr. Chairman, do we ask Mr. Throckmorton to
Yeah, we can.
deal with it? Right. Help
You
us.
know, anybody else wishing to speak on this ordinance, please come forward at this time. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Mr. Tucker, you had a question of staff?
Mr. Throckmorton come up and address the 3 issues, the 3 points that were made about smoke.
The current proposal is the model ordinance for the state is DEQ. So if any of that verbiage is to be changed, it's going to have to be represented back to DEQ.
So Mr. Throckmorton, I know we've been asked many years ago when I was on the planning commission to deal with smoke. And I know at that time, the chairman of the planning commission, who's now deceased, had a very difficult time trying to delineate, what happens with smoke. It goes up and then it blows to the left or the right. It could, go 200 yards down the road and then start to fall on somebody else's property, not the adjacent property owner. So the commission at that time wrestled with it and chose not to address it. I guess, do you think that's the reason that the model ordinance doesn't have anything with smoke? To Mr. Doss's point, it doesn't. It says ash, and I know what they're thinking about is ash being cinders that blow onto a piece of property and burn and ignite themselves.
Right.
So,
I think because you can't define it, because like you said, depending on the type of day, what the humidity is, all those influences, it may rise, hit a cloud and come right back down to the ground. It may be overcast, it'll stay on the ground, and that's an assumption of mine. That's the reason I don't think they addressed it, because it's basically no way to control that except for, clear, dry, low humidity day. Otherwise, you're gonna have the fluctuation of where the smoke goes.
If we were to change it, you're saying we need to resubmit it to who?
DEQ.
Okay.
This is their model ordinance. It's a minimal requirement. They consider it the minimal requirements for open burning, and you can become more restrictive, you can't become less restrictive, but any changes you make to the model ordinance, they have to approve, and you may have to go to their board, I think meets twice a year, to present those changes.
Mr. Chairman, you actually adopted this back in November. And what we adopted, we sent to DEQ, and the reason we're back today is because DEQ said, that's great, but you're gonna have to make these 2 or 3 little changes here before we approve it. And so we've actually adopted this once already, and if you change it, which you can, then we'll do that process again. We'll have to go back to DEQ, and it'll be, what, it's been 7 months.
Mr. Williams?
No, I depend on staff, for guidance in situations like this. They're the experts. And I think he gave a very complete explanation of why you don't see this in the ordinance, for smoke. I can tell you, I've seen it before where it comes across the field, just like you're talking about low humidity or something like that. And it's way away. I live on 35 acres. And the etiology of the smoke is outside the 35 acres. But you can see it where it comes across the field. And you can't control that. Only the weather can control that, if I'm describing this accurately. Is
Yes.
that?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I tend to agree with Mr. Williams a little bit, but I do have some, if you're allergic to smoke, it is very encumbering on you. And there are citizens in our county that are, but I don't know how you'd ever regulate it. Hopefully the neighbor would be neighborly enough that if the smoke's blowing towards his neighbor who's highly allergic to smoke, that he would say, you know what, I'll just stop, and hopefully the wind will blow the different direction, I'll burn at that time. But we can't regulate, I think it'd be too difficult to regulate smoke. When I was on the planning commission before, we wrestled with it, and we couldn't find something that was fair and enforceable for all parties. So, although hopefully one day the neighbors will be neighborly enough where you won't burn if your neighbor's allergic to smoke. So that's my head. I don't think I can't figure a way that would be fair in my eyes. Wrestled with it years ago. So. Any other comments, Carson?
You ready for a motion?
Yes, I am.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve 0216-30 as presented.
Second.
Motion is second. Mr. Doss, I do want to make one comment. I do appreciate you bringing it to us. That it's something that needs to be vetted some more over time, and at some point, maybe if you've got something you can find in another locality that addresses the ability for smoke, please bring it back to our staff, and they'll bring it to us. Okay? Thank you.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Nordvig?
Aye.
Mrs. Cabell?
Aye.
Mr. Melton?
Aye.
Mr. Tucker?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Okay. We're now at our second public comment period. Anyone wishing to speak, please come forward at this time. Seeing none, I'll close the public comment period. County attorney comments?
No comments, Mr. Chairman.
County administrator comments?
I just want to thank the board members for attending the EDA event today. I'm looking forward to some more conversation tomorrow, and looking forward to how this process winds up with great involvement from our business community, finding ways that staff can help them, grow organically, and developing a work plan that moves us forward. I'm very excited about that opportunity.
Thank you. It's a good event. Any other comments?
Nothing at this time, thank you.
Board comments?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I'd like to thank Brett and his staff for making 100% improvement on the way Route 60 looks. Now when you come into the county, I don't see all the flags waving that I saw before. I don't see all the yard signs that I saw before. I know we still got work to do, but I take a great deal of pride in the way this county looks, and I'm also of the same mind that this board is, that we really want to dress for the party when it comes for economic development. So you've made a difference. I know we're not done yet, but I just wanted to thank you.
Any other board comments? I just have, it's really not a comment, I guess, as much as I could, I guess it's for Ramona and Ted would be, I did get I'll forward you an email request from a citizen with some concerns on the community parking lot. I don't think it was, wish they would hurry up. They had some questions about runoff and things like that. So I will forward you that email. If we can get back with them and just copy me on the response, I'd certainly appreciate it. Okay. Any other board comments? If not, Tom, will you lead us in closed session?
Yes, sir. Whereas the Board of Supervisors of Powhatan County desires to discuss in closed meeting the following: discussion of the salary of a specific public officer, discussion or consideration of the acquisition of real property for a public purpose, where discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body, and consultation with legal counsel employed by the public body regarding specific legal matters requiring provision of legal advice by such counsel. And whereas pursuant to sections 2.2, 3711, A1, A3, and A7 of the Code of Virginia, such discussions may occur in closed meeting. Now therefore be resolved that the Board of Supervisors of Powhatan County does hereby authorize discussion of forestated matters in closed meeting. Need that as a motion.
So moved.
Second. I don't have a roll call down for that. Good. All in favor of going closed session? Say aye. Those opposed? Motion passes 5-0 in closed session. I hereby reconvene this regular meeting of the Powhatan County Board of Supervisors, an open meeting, and request the clerk of the board to conduct a roll call certification vote of the supervisors to be included in the minutes of this meeting.
Do you certify to the best of your knowledge that, one, the only matters discussed in the closed meeting were public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements, and two, only such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed meeting was convened were heard, discussed, or considered in the closed meeting just conducted? Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Nordvig?
Aye.
Mrs. Cabell?
Aye.
Mr. Melton?
Aye.
Mr. Tucker?
Aye.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion. I move that we continue the Commissioner of the Revenue salary increase based on last year's amount as long as he maintains his certification.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor of the motion as presented?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes 5-0.
Move to adjourn.
Please.
Motion and a second. We're adjourned.